People you talking about, they spent money on white women. They set up bars and they went playing pool and golf for $1,000 a hole, and they were known to make millions and millions when there wasn't no high taxes, and they were not hindered by white America. They were allowed to see the white America is completely closed all the doors on me. I'm not allowed to work in America, out of America. I was stopped right in my prime just when I started making money. So you can't compare me with nobody like Joe Lewis or nobody.
And if you are black, if you are brown, if you are indigenous, and if you are poor, this system is rigged and it is right to the core, and we gonna unbreak it. That's it. And that's all.
That other kind of socialism that revolutionizes the workplace, brings democracy to the workplace for the first time.
So that's one way. And then the other thing is, in my more optimistic days, he's such a perfect endpoint of everything that is toxic and dysfunctional about the United States, about capitalism, about the 80s, that maybe this is the final sort of disgusting burst before we evolve or change to something better.
Talk about some things about why we need a new party. So I thought that'd be a good way to kind of do this. Why do we need a new party? We need a new party because both parties suck,
What are they talking about? Fortified. Are you fortified for the long run? Do you have your cemetery clothes on? Are you coffin ready to live and die for something bigger than you, like a fundamental transformation of a capitalist civilization?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Radical Democracy Show. I'm your host, Kamali Rose, joined today by my brother, Kwame Norville from Raise Fist Media. Thank you so much for joining us, Kwame. Appreciate you. Yeah, we got a lot to get to today. This is going to be a clearing out of the notebook, as we've been doing recently. So got a lot of topics that we want to get to, and we're going to try to get to as many of them as possible in 2 hours. Kwame's probably not going to be with us the whole episode, so we're gonna, we'll try to get in as many topics as we can while Kwame's here with us. In order to try to move through the topics a little quicker. We're going to try to take comment, just a few comments in between each segment, and then we'll really wait until the end, sort of more towards the end, or at a few, we'll take a few breaks and take more comments then. But please still leave us your thoughts. We want to hear your thoughts. We'll be popping up the comments as we go. We just won't necessarily have time to respond to them until a little bit later in the show. But rest assured, we will get to all the comments. So please, if you have any thoughts, share them with us. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. If you haven't done so already, please immediately hit the like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and share this video out on social media. Help us spread the word and grow the channel. Shout out as always to all of our supporters. Anyone providing us financial support. Thank you to Sedalia for another $25 contribution on coffee. Massive shout out for that. Deeply appreciate that. Appreciate all of our comrades supporting this show. So, so to everyone supporting us on coffee, Patreon, links are in the description box below. If you're not already doing that, please do that. Support independent Black left media. It's Black History Month. We get the coldest, shortest month of the year. So this is a good time to send some love, some support to Black folk out there. So please do so. You can also support democracy in the workplace by supporting our show here. We believe in workplace democracy, one worker, one vote on all major decisions, and we are trying to build that here. So if you'd like to support that movement, support our show for as low as $1. All right, and you can also, you not only can you, but you should check out Kwame at Raise Fist Media on YouTube and on Twitter. And Kwame and I will be doing a sort of review and discussion about Judas and the Black Messiah sometime later this week or early next week. So really looking forward to that discussion. I've already watched it. It was, so I won't get into it, but we'll be doing that. If you watch this show, I've got the utmost respect and love for Fred Hampton, and I constantly reference him on the show. I've played just about every living clip there is of Fred Hampton has been played on this show. If the clip exists out there, odds are I found it and I've shown it to you. So what Fred Hampton means to us here as Black leftists, Black socialists. Fred Hampton is a crucial figure in that movement and in that tradition. So with no further ado, I think we should start getting to some stories. So first up, in honor of, we're here, it's Black History Month, as mentioned. And I think what I'd like to do is just kick off by talking about reparations, a topic that I think must be discussed when you talk about, Black history and how to make amends for the legacy of slavery in the United States. I don't think that you can even begin the discussion without beginning it at reparations, because it is long overdue in this country. And a recent study has actually highlighted it. Actually, a couple of recent studies have actually highlighted some of the reasons why we should be supporting reparations. Now, you know what? Before, I forgot about our breaking news that we got right before the beginning of the show too. You know what? All right, we're gonna pause reparations, right? Because I just saw a comment, and I know I'm bad already, right? It's bad that I'm doing this, but we're gonna pause really quickly. We'll come right back to this, I promise.
This is its own little form of reparations, right?
Absolutely. This is very on topic, right? So X with some breaking news here, and this news broke just before the show started, right? So this news broke just before the show started. Rush Limbaugh has died at the age of 70. All right, and that is, as far as I'm concerned, cause for some laughter and some celebration. Because if you know Rush Limbaugh, Rush Limbaugh is a racist right winger who has for years just, used his platform to spew his racist beliefs and to try to, assault the left with his platform, and to try to slow and stave off progress. So to have somebody like him, he is an obstacle in the way. And I don't know about you, Kwame, but I am not of the mindset of like, oh, it's too soon, you need to let them, rest in peace. Not me.
If you saw the amount of liberals that were in my inbox cussing me out about Miss Reagan, you would know that Kwame is not a believer of don't speak ill about any of these
old
people.
dead,
So
you know,
yeah, get the
relics
fuck
of
out
like
here.
hatred and racism and
Absolutely.
misogyny and homophobia
Absolutely.
and transphobia and xenophobia. I mean, these are so xenophobic.
This
So
should be a holiday. This is my
yeah.
this at Raise Fist. This will be a holiday for Raise Fist right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I no tears shed for these people.
Yep.
They
So
were awful.
yes,
Awful.
absolutely. Yeah, so Limbaugh, bye. You know, you will not be missed, Rush Limbaugh. So just a little bit of breaking news. We wanted to make sure we hit y'all with that breaking news here. So that's that. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more later, but let's get back to the topic at hand. All right. So let's get back around to some reparations.
No, we're done funning.
All right. Yes. But thank you for that breaking news as well, X. All right. So on the topic of reparations. So this is something that is long overdue for Black people in this country, and so I wanted to show there were a few recent studies done referencing in highlighting the importance and the need for sustained and ongoing reparations in the United States. And so let's just take a look here at at one of those articles here. So first up, we have this was posted in this is on theconversation.com, and there was a study done by two professors, and the title of this is "Slave Built Infrastructure Still Creates Wealth in U.S., Suggesting Reparations Should Cover Past Harms and Current Value of Slavery." And this was published on February 5th. And this was, this was published. The study was done by two professors, Joshua F.J. Inwood, Associate Professor of Geography and a Senior Research Associate in the Rock Ethics Institute at Penn State, as well as Anna Livia Brand, Assistant Professor, University of California, Berkeley. And if it helps you, these are two white people. So if that helps you, see them as more credible than Black people talking about this, then, there you have that. All right. So I just want to read a few quick bits of this, and of course, as always, links to all of our resources and references are in the description box below. So if you need to see it, follow up, and I highly recommend everyone should read this full article. We don't have time to read through the full article today, but everyone should absolutely read through this for the details on this. But I'll just read a little bit from it. It says, American cities from Atlanta to New York City still use buildings, roads, ports, and rail lines built by enslaved people. The fact that century-old relics of slavery still support the economy of the United States suggests that reparations for slavery would need to go beyond government payments to the ancestors of enslaved people to account for profit-generating slave-built infrastructure. Debates about compensating Black Americans for slavery began soon after the Civil War in the 1860s with promises of, quote, 40 acres and a mule. A national conversation about reparations has reignited in recent decades. The definition of reparations varies, but most advocates envision it as a two-part reckoning that acknowledges the role slavery played in building the country and directs resources to the communities impacted by slavery. They're just explaining how they did the study. They say through our geographic and urban planning scholarship, we document the contemporary infrastructure created by enslaved Black workers. Our study of what we call the, quote, landscape of race shows how the globally dominant economy of the United States traces directly back to slavery. All right. And then in this article, they go through, they talk about the railroads that still exist, how it's still generating wealth to this day, these railroads that were built on slave labor. So they give multiple examples of companies that have profited off of these railroads. For one that will ring a bell to folks likely that watch this channel is one of them was Lehman, Durr and Company they received, so examining court affidavits and city records located in the Montgomery City Archive, we learned the Montgomery Eufaula Railroad Company received $1.8 million in loans from Lehman, Durr and Company. The main backers of Lehman, Durr and Company went on to found Lehman Brothers Bank, one of Wall Street's largest investment banks, until it collapsed in 2008 in the U.S. financial crisis, where, of course, it wiped out tons of black wealth, okay, and black home ownership, all right, when Lehman Brothers collapsed, all right. So you can just see how it traces back, all right. I just want to read one more excerpt from this, and in the section they title "Rethinking Reparations," they say, Savannah, Atlanta, and Montgomery all show how, far from being an artifact of history, as some critics of reparations suggest, slavery has a tangible presence in the American economy, and not just in the South. Wall Street in New York City is associated with the trading of stocks, but in the 18th century, enslaved people were bought and sold there. Even after New York closed its slave markets, local businesses sold and shipped cotton grown in the slaveholding South. All right. So it just highlights that this is not just a Southern issue. This is a Northern, Southern. This is all across the country. All right. And it's not just a ancient history. This is an ongoing, disservice. That's such a weak word for it. It's an ongoing, destruction and damage that it has caused, all right, to black communities and black people in this country. So yeah, I mean, this is something that I talk about when I talk about, black liberation and the black freedom struggle in the United States. I always like to start the conversation from the point of reparations, because I just think that you can't even talk about equality until we catch everybody up to being on the same, the same playing field and the same level, and on a level playing field. So your thoughts, Kwame? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I absolutely am behind it, for it 100%. I feel like it's something that I, as a black man on the left, I don't see it come up enough. And especially in leftist spaces, I feel like they don't talk about reparations anywhere near enough. And I wonder why they don't see just an easy win. If you really want to win, if you want to bring in more black people, especially people, a large population who aren't involved in politics, that's an easy one right there. You say something that will appeal to them, and it won't just help them, it'll help the economy, obviously, like it always does. Anytime you give people money, it will help the economy. But it just seems like an easy win to get more people on your side, which is what they need. They're out here trying to court all kinds of people like the fucking Boogaloo Boys and all kinds of other terrible people that they want to build with. Like, there are people out there that deserve to have a seat at the table, and they would want to come out, and they'll fight for what needs to be done, but you got to give them a reason to fight. And that's an easy one right there that I don't see come up anywhere near enough. And for people on the right, like, they always want to talk about, oh, slavery happened, why are you still talking about it? Pay us reparations and we can end this whole conversation. Then at that point, I'll give some water to when you want to say, oh, why are we still talking about this? But you never made good on it. Like, how? Yeah. What do you mean? Why are we still talking about it? You said sorry, but you never made good on it. Yeah. We still had like Jim Crow, redlining. Like it went way past that. So for y'all to act like you shouldn't come out of pocket, it's real wild to me.
Yeah, really? And I mean, my parents were alive through Jim Crow. This isn't some thing off in the distant past. Like there's I heard Sam Cedar and Michael Brooks reference before how like there's a Jewish holiday called Passover, and this holiday is still celebrated to this day, and they talk about it every year, and what it is in remembrance of their people being enslaved thousands of years ago, and they still, hold it in memory and commemorate that, annually. And so it's absolutely absurd to tell black people to forget about slavery. That just happened, is literally like within our lifetimes. This is recent history, and not just slavery, but the ripple effects of slavery, like Jim Crow and new Jim Crow, with mass incarceration, police brutality. We see it. So the idea that like we should just stop complaining is absolutely absurd. Look at Germany and what they did after the Holocaust. They made reparations, they paid reparations out, and they atoned. They took steps to atone for the sins, to to say, listen, to publicly say and to admit we did wrong, right? We wronged these people, and then to make sure that you also, put in things to make sure that these things don't respawn, it's illegal to have Nazi memorabilia in Germany. Like, it's totally fine for people to wave Confederate flags around all over this country, but Nazi memorabilia, and you can talk about free speech all you want, those were traitors to this country, and the people that literally tried to secede from this country. And so I think that and those are just symbolic sort of measures. I think that the far more important measures are the economic measures in paying for and to recognize from studies like this that it's not just something that happened way in the past. It's still going on to this very day. People are still gaining wealth off of slavery to this very day. All right. And major institutions like Harvard, I'm going to actually reference, I'll pull up and reference a Harvard study that was recently done. But even Harvard was built on slave labor. And so, all these institutions, these modern institutions that we have and modern infrastructure that we have and that we rely on to this day, and that is still generating wealth in this country, was built on slave labor. And so in order to actually pay out reparations, you need to account for that, and there needs to be ongoing, continued, sustained reparations for slavery to all Black people in this country, because you can't differentiate, who was a direct descendant of slaves, or no, sorry, it's all Black people are impacted by this in this country. So
when you look at it and you see the fact that they're still trying to clean up banks and different institutions because they're giving unfavorable loans to Black people, or you look at even the report that came out recently of the Black people who get their houses under appraised, it's every possible level and place that they can hold people back, they do. So that, it's owed. It's really owed.
Absolutely. This is I just pulled up an article here. There was an article on CNN, a recent article that was done by, there was a Harvard study that says that reparations for slavery could have reduced COVID-19 transmission and deaths in the U.S. Harvard study says. Okay, so these are the ongoing, lasting impacts, the generational impacts of slavery. All right, and we cannot deny that. We cannot ignore that, and something must be done. And so, as Joe Biden talks about his Black agenda, if we're not talking about reparations, we're not really talking about healing any kind of racist past or wounds of the United States of America, until we're talking about serious, sustained reparations in this country. Not this little baby bonds or bank loans, zero interest loans. No, because it's not. Black people didn't loan their labor. They gave it up. They gave it up entirely. All right, they were owned by others. They were property in this country, and the only way to atone for that is with serious and sustained payments to Black people in this country.
And I was just gonna say, it's funny that you brought up how they gave in Nazi Germany, they gave reparations, because if I'm not mistaken, they did it here too to Japanese people after their internment. If I right,
I'm not familiar if they did reparations to the Japanese after internment. Very little. Okay, so they did do some. Tammy, super producer Tammy says they did do a little bit of reparations. I think that an even better point to make on this, is that they did give reparations after slavery. Unfortunately, the reparations were to the slave masters, not the slaves. Okay, they paid the slave masters for the slaves that they lost. So slave masters in this country were paid reparations, but slaves and their descendants have not been paid reparations. Okay, and so the U.S. government paid out reparations to slave masters immediately following the Civil War. So we could absolutely pay reparations to the descendants of slaves at this stage. All right, because if we clearly we're not against reparations in this country. It's just about who we choose to give reparations to. Clearly,
absolutely. Yeah. That the stock market thing is eye-opening. That's really eye-opening. I mean, I guess I never thought of it. I guess that, of course, and it's just we were traded on Wall Street, and then we made our own, and then they blew it up. So
exactly, yeah. Kwame's referencing Tulsa, Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yep. The Tulsa, massacre, where they came in and they just bombed what they call Black Wall Street. So Black people tried to make their own sort of economic center. And yeah, and they went and they blew it up. They literally blew it up. Okay, so you know, but this is that was wild to me. That, and I did not know that about Black people being bought and sold on Wall Street. I did not know that that was the history of Wall Street. We're talking about a transaction tax on Wall Street in order to pay for like things like Medicare for All, you know, other programs. We should absolutely have a small transaction tax on Wall Street transactions. For every transaction that's done on Wall Street, a small part of that should go to paying for reparations. And I'm telling you, because of the way that they do they have these high volume there's high volume traders that do these, like, they're using computers to do, you know, millions of little trades. If you just put some small tax on that, then we could generate, you know, billions and trillions of dollars of revenue for the U.S. government, and that revenue should go to, you know, a massive chunk of that needs to go directly to paying for, again, atoning for the sins of slavery in this country and for reparations. So I think that's an extremely important, you know, thing to be aware of, that's how Wall Street sort of got its start in the United States. That's what Wall Street was originally for, was for slave trade. All right. The slaves were we were the property. Okay. Black people, we were the property. All right. And so, it reminds me of the, like, James Baldwin quote when he says, you know, that, you know, I am not exaggerating when I say that I picked the cotton and I took it to market, you know, because it's like, people need to hear that, it's like, it's not some ancient thing, you know, this was us. All right. This is our ancestors. This was us. I know I am a descendant of slaves. I am 100% confident that I know that, you know, I can trace my family history back. We were descendants of Caribbean slaves, you know, same people, same colonizers. We just our boats just took a little bit of a different turn as we got over here, but still impacted by U.S. imperialism, you know, the you know, U.S. empire and the slave trade, and you know, so we definitely, you know, and I know Kwame's from, you know, got Caribbean roots as well, and, you know, I'm sure you can't trace your roots back, you know, much further than a few generations ago. Yeah. So. All right. So just wanted to make sure we cover that. You know, Black History Month, we get our 28 days here. So want to just try to highlight that and make folks aware of that sort of thing. And I also saw, Kwame also mentioned to me before this started that they're actually doing Congress is doing what was that? They're having, like, they're holding hearings right now, right?
HR 40.
Okay, on HR 40. Yeah. So they're holding hearings right now to try to determine whether or not, you know, what are the recourse for, you know, on reparations. We'll see what comes out of it. Let me tell you, I don't expect much, if anything at all. I expect it to be, you know, tinkering around the edges, not serious reparations.
That CNN article, man, that it could have saved lives, you know, possibly. That I mean, when you look at how Black people were more impacted by COVID-19, like, it, of course it makes sense that if their situation was different, they probably wouldn't be dying like that.
Exactly. Absolutely. It just seems so obvious to me that those things are connected, that those things are totally connected. So it's really, it's frustrating that they, you know, that this conversation even needs to be had still at this point. It's like, it seems so obvious to me that these impacts still, you know, that the ripple effects of that are still impacting people to this day in many more complex ways than are even, you know, measurable, to be honest. So there's a ton of other measurable ways that it impacts people. All right. So, all right, let's get to our next story. We're just going to keep cruising through here. Yeah, and just to clarify, the Civil Liberties Act of 1988 granted reparations to Japanese Americans who had been interned by the U.S. government during World War II. All right. In 1988, a payment of $20,000, equivalent to $43,000 in 2019, was compensated to each former internee who was still alive when the act was passed. Wow. Yeah. The legislation admitted that the government actions were based on, quote, race prejudice, war hysteria, and a failure of political leadership. The U.S. government eventually dispersed more than $1.6 billion, equivalent to about $3.5 trillion in 2019 in reparations to 82,000 Japanese Americans who had been interned. So $3.5 trillion for Japanese internment reparations, which, you know, they deserve. They deserve reparations for that. I'm just saying that black people also deserve reparations and deserve massive amounts of reparations, far more than $3.5 trillion. And listen to the numbers that you hear them throwing out. I mean, it's like $1 trillion or I'm trying not to cuss. But fuck you. You know how much wealth we have generated in this country? Kiss my ass with your your few $1 trillion. All right.
I want to just point out when you even look, and this is what gets me so fucking mad about cultural appropriation, is it removes the impact that black people have on the culture here. And when you look at things like Hollywood and a lot of what like our style, our culture, our dialect is, and how much of that is impacted, like when people think of things that are American, a lot of that is black people shit. All right. So like you need to get it correct in just how much we've impacted this damn country for y'all not to have ever paid us reparations. So like when we're talking about how much we generate in wealth for this country, let's not forget all the shit that like is a lot harder to put a dollar amount to that we've contributed to this damn country.
Yep, absolutely. 100%. All right. So let's keep pushing along here. Let's keep pushing along. We'll pull up our next story here. Gonna, shift course. We're gonna be a little bit over the map. We'll be all over the map here. No pun intended. We will cover some foreign policy as well in this show. But we'll be a little bit all over the map today. But so we're gonna go to our next story, and yeah. All right. Keep cruising along. Okay. So over 24 New Jersey prison guards have been put on paid leave, and 3 of those prison guards have been charged with criminal charges for or I believe it's criminal. Criminal. I believe it's felony charges, but I think they may be misdemeanors at this point is all that they've been charged with. They're being currently charged with misconduct for their actions in a brutal attack on women prisoners. So these are prison guards, and 3 of them have been charged in this brutal assault, sexual assault, physical assault, and a cover up and an ensuing cover up in this New Jersey prison. Now, what I'd like to do, I think I can show us. I have a video actually that I can show here. One sec. Sorry, y'all.
Shout out to What Up.
What up? What up? All right. Just want to share this video. This video will break down really quickly what's going on, and then we'll come back and discuss.
Tonight, a most disturbing story. In fact, it's worse than a disturbing story. It involves prison guards in New Jersey, about 24 of them, accused of taking half a dozen women inmates, beating them, and then stripping at least one of them, dragging her to a shower, and then sexually assaulting her. So far, just 3 guards are facing charges of just misconduct so far. A full-blown state investigation into this prison of horrors is now underway. Here's Eyewitness News reporter Darla Miles.
Shortly before midnight on January 11th, more than 24 officers at Edna Mahan forcibly removed a number of inmates from their prison cells. The officers were organized into groups known as extraction teams.
The New Jersey Attorney General says there were extraction teams, officers at the Edna Mahan Correctional Facility in Hunterdon County, who they say attacked inmates who were already following directions.
We allege that they deployed pepper spray, rushed into the inmate's cell, and beat several of the victims without justification. 3
of those officers have now been charged: Amir Bethea, Anthony Valvano, and Luis Garcia, charged with second-degree official misconduct, which carries a mandatory 5-year sentence. New Jersey Attorney General Gabir Graywall announced the arrest and charges Thursday afternoon.
One of the most troubling extractions was led by Sergeant Bethea. During the removal, one of the officers under his supervision, Officer Luis Garcia, allegedly struck a victim approximately 28 times with his closed fist.
Once the violence ended, Sergeant Bethea and Sergeant Valvano both attempted to cover it up by filing false reports about the incident.
This indictment only involves 2 victims, but investigators say 6 inmates have come forward so far, some who even suffered concussions and an eye fracture. And investigators say not only was the assault captured on surveillance video, but say some of the corrections officers recorded it on their cell phone.
We are bringing the charges we brought today to send a strong deterrent message.
All right. So, oops, sorry about that. All right. So, yeah. So, as they said there, brutally be. I'll read. I can read a few more of the sort of specifics on this if we want, but so far the charges have come specifically in regards to 2 of the women that were assaulted, but at least 6 women have come forward. I'm fairly certain there are more than that, and I'm sure that this isn't just this one incident. They have a history at this Edna Mahan correctional facility of this sort of brutal tactics, and so. And you got more than 24 guards implicated in the cover up as well. And I'm sure, again, more guards implicated in the assaults as well if it expands out to include at least those 4 other women that have come forward with reports of assault. I know that, as I mentioned there, one woman was punched with a closed fist, 28 times, many of the blows to her head. A trans woman, a black trans woman that was one of the victims of these assaults had her head repeatedly stomped on by these prison guards. So, of course, when these things just will always end up, disproportionately impacting the more marginalized you are. That's why intersectionality, we talk about, is so important, because the layers of intersectionality there just make you a bigger target for systemic injustice. And so, yeah, this was just a particularly horrendous, story that I thought kind of went a little bit too under the radar for my liking, and I just wanted to make sure that we highlighted it and called some attention to this abuse. This is why when we talk about abolishing prisons, and this was the thing with like Joe Biden, ending the federal contracts for private prisons. That all that did was when Joe Biden signed that executive order ending the federal private prison contracts, all that did was move 14,000 prisoners out of private prisons and into public prisons. And the thing is that these prisons, or state into state private prisons, and out the federal prisoners, they'll go into other federal public prisons, and all it does is just move the prisoners out of from one into the other. And the problem is that even this isn't a federal prison, but even federal prisons have these sort of abuses and issues. And so the problem is people being detained in this way in the culture and the system of imprisonment in the extremely punitive system of imprisonment that we have in here. It's not focused on rehabilitation. People oftentimes come out more violent than they went in. The recidivism rate, we have the highest recidivism rate in the entire world. That's the rate of people that get out of prison and then wind up back in there. And so it's not enough to talk about, like, when you talk about, we're going to end federal prisons for private federal contracts for private prisons. Great, that's like a golf clap worthy gesture, but it doesn't in any way fundamentally change the system. And the problem is our prison system itself, and even public prisons are at issue here. State prisons are at issue here. And so yeah, just wanted to make sure, just got to highlight these things and to show that it's you put people you give people power over other people like this, and it's going to be abused. In particular, I think it's kind of heinous that you have, men as guards over women in these women's prisons. I don't know how we justify that. I mean, that's there's already an inherent power imbalance there, and then you go and you add the power of authority into there. That's extremely frightening. So any thoughts?
I agree. I also am on team abolition because of exactly this. It's there's not really much to say because you nailed it so perfectly. You know, our prison system is completely broken. It's not to rehabilitate people at all. It's yeah, I mean, this is what happens. This is what happens, and this is why, you know, when they say all cops are bastards, you know, the prison guards are right in there with them because they do shit like this. They are cops as well. They just are stationed to one place where they can abuse people. They're not, no one, I'm sure there's like one or two out there who think that they're going there and they're caring about people, but as a whole, the entire system, it's rotten. It's rotten. We need a real change.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's systemic change, you know. And one thing I'll just note about the whole like Biden doing the, you know, ending federal contracts for private prisons. It's about 4 to 8% of all prisoners in the country are held in private prisons. It's a mix of state and federal. So, you know, it's not even all of that 8% isn't in federal prisons. Again, when he did that order, it impacted 14,000 people all total. All right. And that's only, again, a very small fraction of the overall prison population. And all it did was move them out of one prison system and into another prison system, which has its own set of issues and abuses. All right. There's still all types of privatization and incentives for people to profit off of prisons. We have legalized slavery in our prison system. You know, we literally through the 13th Amendment have carved out an exception for slavery through the prison system. So, you know, prisoners are exploited in every way, shape, and form that they can be, and, you know, disenfranchised, have their right to vote taken away, and many of them for nonviolent crimes. You know, many of these people are locked away for nonviolent crimes, and it's, you know, it's drug offenses. And so, you know, I just think what Biden could have done in that same executive order, you know, right now where there's real numbers in private detention centers are in the immigration are essentially our immigration concentration camps that we have now. These ICE detention centers, 70% of all detainees, of all federal detainees, immigration detainees are held in privately operated detainment centers. All right. I mean, I'm being really nice and calling these things detainment centers. They are concentration camps. All right. They concentrate a population into very small, very, you know, dense spaces, and revoke all of their civil liberties away. So 70% of all ICE detainees are held in private detention centers. If Biden would have signed an executive order that included those people, they wouldn't have been able to simply move these people from one facility to another. You would have to, honestly, you have to let them go. You just have to let them go, which is what we used to do. We usually, you get these people, you take them in, and then they're allowed to move, go and be with family. Do you have a family member or somebody that you can stay with? That's the typical process. Is to let them come in and then let them, you process them and then you let them stay out in the community with family and stuff, and just summons them back to court, right? And they're more, they'll come back, they appear, they come back or whatever. What we can't say is like, oh, we need to hold them and abuse these people in the meantime and use them for slave labor as well, because they're also being used for slave labor as well. So if Biden was serious about trying to help people in prisons or being imprisoned, he would have included immigrants, immigration detention centers, ICE detention centers in that executive order. And he didn't, because he's not really serious about changing anything about the fundamental underlying system. It's all about, how do I do the absolute least to get the pat on the back and the praise of the liberals and get them back to sleep so that we can keep on, doing all these same civil rights abuses that we do. So yeah, that's my my thoughts on that. And it's really unfortunate that these prison guards are allowed to have this kind of authority and power over people. And I just want to point out too, by the way, as you saw in those prison guards, there was a black prison guard, a
lineup again.
Exactly. A black prison guard, a Latinx prison guard, and a white prison guard. All right. So this is the issue with the left versus liberals, right? The left is talking about, defunding the police, abolish ICE, prison abolition, and I have a different, I have a slightly, like, I don't go all the way to prison abolition, to be honest. Like, I still think we're going to need something in the way of a place to hold people that are violent criminals, where we can, where we can separate them from society to protect the rest of people. Like, I do think that the government has a mandate to do something like that. It has but what we're talking about, like, abolishing prisons as we know them today, right?
Yes.
And as we handle them today, because other countries are not so violent in their prisons, and they treat prisoners like human beings too. It's not a totally dehumanizing process whereby all your rights are stripped away. You're stripping away their right to freedom of movement and freedom in their autonomy. That should be enough. You take away their ability to be dangerous to the rest of society, and that should be enough. And then it should be about rehabilitation. And I just want to point out that here you have, with the left, we're talking about abolishment. With liberals, they're talking about just diversifying the oppressive class, right? Diversify your oppressors. Yeah. All we need is black faces in high places, right? We just need more black prison guards and more Latino and Hispanic prison guards and more women prison guards, more
cops.
Exactly, right? So it's all that sort of
a black police chief.
Exactly. We had Daniel Cameron, the black attorney general, that completely abused his power to make sure that Breonna Taylor's murderers got off scot-free. So, the idea that black faces in high places, or that rainbow capitalism or diversifying the oppressors has any positive impact. Usually talking about Fred Hampton, like, this is the time where I like to play the clip of Fred Hampton coming in saying you don't you're not gonna or he talks about Papa Doc in Haiti and how Papa Doc led a successful revolution in Haiti, and then he turned around and then he oppressed his people the same way that the white people were oppressing his people, right? And if you had asked those people in Haiti, hey, would you are you concerned about the color of the foot and the boot on your neck? They would say, no, I just want the boot off my damn neck, right? I just don't want to be oppressed. I don't care what the race of the person that's oppressing me is, all right? So, this is why, like, I just had to highlight that and make sure people just see that racial diversity doesn't change the underlying system. All right. Even in representation, and representation can be nice. It can be a nice thing. But it does not change the underlying system. That's not systemic change. And what we need to be talking
one without the other. You can't have one without the other.
Exactly.
Like if you have, if you focus just on the systemic, then like you're gonna get shit done. People are gonna be really depressed. That other shit, that interpersonal shit matters on a day-to-day basis as to how we exist as human beings, as to how we emotionally are, so we can go out there and fight these fights that need to be fought as activists and people who are out there fighting the good fight. We need to fix that other shit. But the systemic shit, that's the shit that will actually change things in an impacting way. What I always say about putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole, and I appreciate the interpersonal shit, the systemic shit. That is what actually matters.
Yeah, great. All right, so glad we got to cover that and just highlight that these disgusting abuses, and to just really highlight that. And I'm glad that we got to touch on that. All right, so we're gonna keep pushing along to our next story. Staying with the topic of the cops, all cops being bastards. We're gonna just hit you with a few ACAB stories here. All right, so brace yourself. And I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have done a content warning before that. I deeply apologize. Luckily, there were no images or anything shown of the violence, but I apologize for not giving a content warning beforehand on the sexual assault. I apologize for that. I'll try to edit that in after the fact. Content warning: the next story contains graphic descriptions of sexual abuse of women prisoners. Okay. So let's see. Next story up. Give me 1 second. While I pull this up. Please, if you haven't done so already, please hit the like button down below. Subscribe to the channel. Share this out on social media. We need your help to spread the word and grow the platform. So please do so and help us make that a possibility.
You can do your own personal minor form of reparations today. right now, even by going to my brother's coffee or going to his Patreon and making sure that you support him. Also, go check out me at patreon.com/raisefistmedia.
Yep, absolutely. And yes,
Do
please,
your
please, please
service.
show some love all around. Definitely pay out them reparations. All right, sorry, just need one more second. Okay, all right. So we will do, all right, the dumpster fire of a story here. Okay.
Infuriating.
Yes. So, Kwame, do you want to set us up on this one? Do you want to set this one up for us?
Yeah. So, basically, this Fred Meyers, Portland police officers guard Fred Meyers dumpsters, face off with residents seeking discarded food. So Fred Meyers is a supermarket, or it's a store, I take it, and their freezers broke during the winter storm that they've been having, and because of that they had to discard all of a whole bunch of perishable food, meat, different things like that. So they threw it out into a dumpster, which being as cold as it was, the snow, most of it kept. So naturally, as people do, people showed up. People who like, we are in the middle of a pandemic right now. You look at the homelessness crisis that's going on in this country right now. There's a million reasons why people will show up to do this. Like, if people need to eat, give people food. As that's a whole different aside that I can go on about how we should be feeding people. But as we know, there's a reason that this is in the ACAB section of the show. The cops were there and decided to. I mean, do you want me to read off the article? I can read off the article. You can read off the article if you plan to. But the cops showed up and did what cops decide to do.
Yeah. They said that roughly a dozen Portland police officers faced off with a small group at a Northeast Portland Fred Meyer on Tuesday after people tried to take food that had been thrown away. Images on social media showed mountains of packaged meat, cheese, and juice, as well as whole turkeys and racks of ribs that had been tossed into two large dumpsters near the store. You can see images here of people, just these piles and piles of food that is not past its expiration. And this food had also been sitting out in the cold because it's so freezing out. It was so cold that it caused power outages. So this food has been preserved. This is good, meats that are not past their expiration date, juices, meats, and people, so people came and showed up. They said employees were guarding the dumpsters when they showed up to get some of the discarded food. This person, Morgan McNiff, began to film the employees and reported staff members threatened to call the police on them for doing so. Eventually, the staff members did call the cops. This is capitalism in action, folks. So this is what, they talk about, like, the bread lines under socialism, but look at this. Like, people are starving so much so that they need to go, to these dumpsters to get food, which is, let's be real, like, let's not portray this as like, oh, this is like people tossing old spoiled food in a dumpster or something. This is good food that should have been, think about that. Like, this is a time where it's like, why not make sure that food, other people have means of preserving that, of, it can be used up in a day, all it needs is, it's still good. It could be all used today. And people that showed up, they didn't go and start like piling it. Everybody showed up and they took a few things, they took a few things that they needed and they left more for other people. This is how community works and stuff. And it's like, So they said about 15 people eventually gathered in an attempt to collect food. And then at that point, a dozen officers arrived at the scene. So for 15 people, you need 12 cops to show up, to come and stop these people. One of the officers, by the way, wasn't wearing a mask. So if you're thinking that this is about public safety and you're saying, oh no, this is just the cops trying to keep the public safe, they don't want them eating spoiled food or anything like that, or getting sick. No. Don't kid yourself. Okay. These cops don't give a flying F about these people. Okay. They showed up not wearing a mask, refused to put one on until a supervisor arrived and brought him one. Okay. So they're not out here because they care about people or anything like that. And this was in Portland, Oregon, as we said. yeah, and so that, you know, that's what they were doing. This is what this is what our taxpayer dollars are paying for here, folks. You know, not to go out there and to support the homeless, to support the hungry. No. It's to make sure that the homeless and the hungry don't get free food that is being thrown away. It's going to be discarded and tossed into a trash somewhere.
Cops do not serve the people; they protect property.
Yes.
And they make sure that we don't kill each other because we are the property of capitalism and we have to produce for the system. I mean, that's the only reason that they care about the larger crimes. But for the most part, all they really care about is making sure that homeless people can't sleep somewhere, that they can't eat. They make sure that, you know, like they make sure. That's why they demonize looting to this absolute absurd amount, where we're talking about people going out and killing people like in Kenosha because of destruction of property. And this is the shit that this country cares about. This is what the police are here for. They're here to protect property. They're not here to help the community in any way, shape, fashion, or form.
Everybody's heard the like, you know, trope or whatever, you know, possession is 9/10 of the law. You know, that's because possession, when you possess something, it's your property, you know, and that's why it's 9/10 of the law. Okay. Because it's all about property, and the law is all about property. All right. And, you know, on the topic of reparations, you know, Black people used to be the property. All right. And that's why we talk about, we need some reparations for this thing. Okay. Because we used to be the property. All right. But yeah, this, and you know, when we talk about defunding the police, like, this is what we're talking about. You know, we're talking about redirecting resources. Like, this is not a job for cops. Like, why did 12 cops need to show up here? Y'all, this is what you don't have any. Yeah,
who's in danger? This you talk about a victimless crime. Like, who they were throwing this shit away. The second they threw it out, it's trash. It's no, like, so it's still in their possession enough that they need to call the police to defend. I'm not even sure what the cops were there to do. They were protecting trash. They were protecting trash.
Yep.
They relinquished ownership of this shit to motherfucking nature at that point.
Yeah, and look at that, like trash has more value than like Black lives in this country. Like, let's be real here. Like, look at how cops handle Black human beings in this country versus how they handle, you know, trash. They're willing to go out there to protect trash, but look how they treat, you know, Black human beings and, you know, in our society. So, you know, when we talk about defunding the police, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about shifting resources away from the police and into, you know, things like providing homes and food. Listen, I don't want people to have to dig through dumpsters to feed themselves. One, I don't think that this food ever needed to make its way to a dumpster. Like, it shouldn't have even been placed into a dumpster. It should have been immediately donated to homeless shelters everywhere. Like, why would you toss this food in the trash? You could literally, you know, let me explain to you why they would throw this food in the trash. Because fiscally, it costs them less to dump the food in the trash than it would cost them, the private corporation, to take that food and to feed the public with it. All right. Now, fiscally, it saves money if we don't waste things, right? If we don't allow more waste, right? It saves, it's sustainable. So what would be better for the community would be to make sure that this food wasn't wasted and it instead got used. But that's not their purpose. That's not the goal, because it's not profitable. All right. Because it wasn't profitable for this one private corporation. Was it profitable for the community overall to handle it, to disseminate those goods and resources to the rest of the community? Absolutely. It would be profitable to the community at whole, but it's not profitable to this one private corporation. So they do it. And then they turn around and they call up the taxpayer funded cops to come and do what? To those people, those civilians are the ones paying, you know, those cops, salaries as well, and they're paid to come out there and to do harm to them. And let's be real, like, they put these people at greater risk, right? The cops, one, just showing up in general, these are Black and brown people. You put them at risk when you call cops on Black people and brown people in this country. White people need to stop calling the damn cops on people. Not just Black people, but anybody.
This was a corporate Karen. This company performed a Karen.
Yeah,
is the only way to describe this shit. If this had been a singular person, the world would have like super mocked this person, and I think that this company deserves to be fucking just destroyed for this,
Yeah.
because this is absolutely, what in your right minds would make you think to call the police on people for this?
Yeah.
With all, what if they had shown up and just shot someone? Like,
Yeah,
that is,
yeah.
like,
That is
I never want to hear a discussion about the police without people pointing out that could have happened, because that always could have happened. They've proven it at this point.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And so, yeah, and like, you know, like that's you put people at risk in that way, and you also put people further at risk by showing up there without a mask. Like these people that showed up and were doing this, like they're wearing masks, they're protecting themselves. It's the cops that show up without wearing a mask, you know, putting putting public health at risk, right? So the idea that cops are there to protect communities, you know, not unless you are one of the wealthiest white people, a property owning, you know, white person. Those are the only people that cops are there to protect. All the rest of us, you know, they're not. They will protect property over us, over our lives, and this is why we need to funnel funding away from cops and into social services to protect people. All right, if people are housed and fed, then this doesn't even happen. If people are all housed and properly fed, then this is never an issue. And instead of paying those cops and paying those salaries to go do what they just did there, we should be paying people to be either providing food, feeding the hungry, feeding the poor, or building houses for the homeless, right? Put that money into, you know, giving people's homes and giving people food, right? To make sure that people are taken care of.
When we look at like what violence in Boston for like the smaller local people are doing, where they're getting out there and feeding the communities, the food drop boxes and community fridges, like the people are taking care of each other through this pandemic in a time that has shown that the system will completely fail us if we do not look out for each other right now. And that is like, again, this is another thing, like this system of capitalism is just completely will fail us every single time and leave us fending for ourselves. It will always leave us fending for ourselves. And this is another case of that, because this was an opportunity where they could have donated this food. They could have helped people in a time where people most need it. I cannot think of a more ludicrous time where your solution was, I'm going to just throw this the fuck away.
Yep. In the middle of a pandemic, you know, with people,
in the middle of a pandemic,
mass unemployment, people struggling, just trying to make ends meet. And this is what the cops are out there doing, you know.
And for people who don't care, always remember that a large portion of this country is one incident away from homelessness.
Yes.
You know, at any given time.
78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, meaning, 50% of Americans cannot survive a $500 emergency without having to, borrow out money. All right. So they don't have the money in the assets to survive a $500 emergency. 50%, 1 in every 2 people in this country. All right. Half of all people in this country can't survive a $500 emergency. All right. Without having to borrow. All right. So, and can they borrow? Many of them, no, because of credit and all, and the fact that they're surrounded by other people that are also struggling. They don't have it. They have to sell their, things that they have, pawning and that's no way to live. All right. That's no way for anyone to live. That causes all kinds of mental health issues. When you're one step away from destitution at every step of the way, it's such a burden on your mental health and your psyche. We don't talk about the extra toll that takes on our healthcare system and just on people in general, right?
I mean, this country is only very recently starting to take mental health seriously. It feels like as an actual country, like I've always like there are people in the industry who talk about it, but we're almost at the point where people have where people are talking about this, even though I feel like a lot of the time people scapegoat terrorism, mass shootings, things like that on a mental health issues to a point where they're kind of like, I don't know, scapegoating the mental health community. Frankly, if as an aside, sometimes money gets funneled into it because of it, I guess I'm happy, but that is something that we still don't talk enough about or put anywhere enough into. But I mean, our healthcare system is broken, so I'm not surprised that our mental health care system is also broken as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, because mental health, even though, you know, your brain is a part of your body, last I checked, you know, so you think mental health.
It's
exactly.
health.
It should literally just be called health. Like, it's just health. It's just part of your health, right? It's like the fact that we even have to distinguish between the two is really, totally absurd. All right, so we're gonna keep powering along because I'm gonna try to get through as many of these stories as I can. I got so many stories. I'm not gonna get to all of them. I'm realizing now. So we done 3 in the first hour. We're gonna have to pick up our pace a little bit, but we want to give. The thing is, we want to give the adequate time to every story that we cover, and so I don't want to rush through. If we got stuff to say, we're gonna say it, and I'm gonna let this stream run a little bit longer than 2 hours if I have to. Kwame, if anytime you got to take off, just say the word.
Jump after the next one.
All right. Yep. Okay, so for our next story, sticking on the topic, all cops are bastards. Let us, keep pushing along here. All right. So St. Louis, the city of St. Louis is set to pay $5 million to a black cop who was beaten by his buddies while undercover as a protester. So you have a cop who was beaten by other cops while undercover as a protester, and now the city is paying out $5 million. So let me just tell you this. Let me just say, so we were paying, the taxpayers were apparently paying, okay? These taxpayers were unknowingly, and this is supposedly within a democracy, all right? They were unknowingly paying this cop to go in and do what? Why was he undercover as a protester? Why are cops undercover as protesters? He is literally trying to infiltrate the Black Lives Matter movement. Okay, so we have a cop trying to infiltrate the Black Lives Matter movement, posing as a protester. For what reasons? I have seen with my own 2 eyes cops inciting violence disguised as protesters. All right, trying to portray themselves as protesters, getting caught trying to incite violence during these protests, all right? And then they turn around and they just blame it on the movement at large, right?
And we need to stop for a second we need to be very specific here. He wasn't there. He wasn't just happy. This wasn't a case where it was a black cop who happened to be there and was beat up, because a lot of the time when this shit comes out and people actually speak about it, it's a black cop who's come up like, oh yeah, this went sideways and they didn't know I was a cop and they did some fucked up shit to me because I was black. Like, no. He was on the job. He was undercover as a protester. That's a very specific point we need to zone in on.
Yes, absolutely. And so you got us paying this dude apparently without our knowledge, without our our say so, paying him to go and be undercover as a protester. Then he gets his ass whooped by his fellow cops. All right. And now the responsibility falls yet again on the taxpayers to pay for cops abusing other cops. And who has to pay? The taxpayers who are not being protected, whose lives are being endangered by these cops daily. And this is what, but $5 million to a cop. So we're going to give a cop $5 million because he got his ass whooped by his buddies. Are you kidding me? Like, color me not concerned. Okay. I do not give too little. I have no F's to give on this. All right. I got none. I got 0 to give on this dude. I'm just outraged that they gave him money. Like, I'm outraged that he was given money. I'm pissed.
Fuck him. He's a multi-point trader in every way fucking possible. Fuck him. Like, super fuck this dude.
Absolutely. And no, ignore me. I'm gonna lose my shit.
The shit that is like really wild to me, right, is from a financial standpoint. How are y'all still rocking with the police? I don't get it. Like, I don't fuck with the police. I'm like, I want to defund the police. I want to abolish the police as we know it. We need to change the whole fucking system, if you ask me, and destroy what we know as the police. But like, even starting at like, how are you against defunding the police? How do you not see, like, if we defunded the police and they weren't out doing fuckery like this, we would have more money that we can funnel into the communities. But wait, there's more. We have even more money because we're now not paying out $5 million because these dumbasses beat up one of their own kind. If we were to go back and take all of the money that we have to pay out to families and victims of police brutality or people who were wrongfully murdered by the police, we could start funding reparations to fucking morrow, and we can battle it on both fronts. Considering they're killing us as black people the way we are, we should take that money that we're giving them instead and just give it to fucking reparations. And we can improve shit on multiple fronts. If you want to talk about where we can get that money from.
Yeah, and I hate that when these incidents happen, it's the taxpayers that are put on the hook for this. When it really should be the cops. Doctor pay, make them pay for this for the rest of their lives, all right? Sure, let the taxpayers pay for it, and then the cops should be forced to pay back the taxpayers out of every single paycheck. They should be paying for it. You did this, all right? You did the harm. You started it, you perpetuated it. You did all of this, all right? And I'm not just like, man, the fact that a cop got his ass whooped by other cops, one, hilarious, all right? Awesome. Yes, hilarious, all right? Good.
We got Limbaugh. We got this. It's fucking Black History Month, y'all.
You got what you deserved, all right? He got what he deserved. I'm sorry. He got what he deserved, all right? If anyone's going to get their ass beat by cops, it should be other cops, all right? Yes. If anyone's going to have to get their ass beat by cops, let it be other cops, all right? And I did a story. I think I covered the story. I don't know if I ever got a chance to cover the story. There's another story of a cop that ran away. He got stopped in the middle of the night by some other cops. He was a black off-duty, former police officers. He got stopped and he just books it and runs because he realizes I gotta go. I know what this is about. I gotta go. And he runs away from them and they chase him down, drive him down, find him in the middle of the field and run his ass over with a truck. They ran this dude over with a truck. Okay. So that's how cops know. Cops know what cops are about. All right. They know. Cops are they know more than anyone else what the cops are capable of. All right.
Yep. Absolutely. This is it's wild. Even for each other. They don't give a fuck. You want to talk about completely rabid and reckless and how have for liberals who are now waking up and hearing people talk about defund the police, how have you not woken up and seen that you have lost complete and total control over this shit? They're done. They're not just protecting your property and your gated fences at this point. This is
yeah, absolutely. So
but we have I'm curious to see, because now when people go out and protest, now that it's not Donald Trump anymore, how they're gonna reckon with this, because the cops aren't going to change. When we go out there and we protest Joe Biden because he did something terrible, it's gonna be the same cop showing up and bashing us. This shit has not changed. Don't think for a second because Trump left office that any of this has changed at all. Yep. at all.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. All right. On this topic, and before you go, Joe Biden did a recent town hall actually, and he talked. He gave he shared his thoughts on defunding the police, and so I'll just show a quick clip of Joe Biden sharing his thoughts on this. And this one, oh man, I mean, there's a few little nuggets in this one here. Yeah, exactly. All right, so this is Joe Biden at his town hall. I think this was yesterday. He did a town hall, and this is him talking about reparations. I'm sorry, not reparations. I apologize. Defunding the police and about police funding to police. All right.
Mr. President, defund the police is discussed as an option for reforming policing. However, there are communities where people live in fear, not of the police, but in fear of the violent gangs who commit crimes in those neighborhoods. How can we be sure that we don't over-legislate police officers so that they can't do their job to protect the law-abiding citizens who live in these high-crime neighborhoods, and yet train officers to police with compassion?
Okay, before I go any further, just please know that they got the most...
bad that no, but congrats to bruh in Black History Month, props to him for getting his opportunity to do this. You got picked, bro. You pick me ass bitch. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Dude,
I'm sorry.
is that like, because that's all I gotta say about that. That question is the most coonery. Is that like the coonery in that question, dude?
It is one of those like, but my real fear is black on black crime. Ass, you sound like a black white supremacist ass. I'm done.
So I just want everybody to just
colorblind ass.
just recognize the framing of this question. The fact that they got a black person to ask this question is very. They find the black person that is willing to, that is willing to. The Fox News is famous for doing this. They will find the one black person, the Candace Owens, that will come out here and say the most anti-black thing you can think of. All right, so this guy is just coming out here straight out of he's concerned about the police. His concern is how do we allow the police to do their jobs, because the real problem, I'm really worried. My concern is all the violent, all the violent people that, all the violent civilians out there, no issue with the cops. Oh, they're great. And how do we help them do even more of what they do?
What are they doing right now?
How do we legislate cops?
Hold on. What are they doing right now to help with gang violence? Because you're still living in it. You're dealing with it right now. The cops are as funded right now as they're going to be in the next 5 minutes as they were 5 minutes ago, right? So what have they done to stop gang violence right now in your life that you are out here tap dancing for them?
The reality is they can't really do anything. The cops show up after the fact, after all the damage is done. That's when cops show up. All right,
and they don't. So they can take notes and not do anything.
Exactly. And they both over police and under police black neighborhoods, right? They over police through broken windows policing, stop and frisk. They over police us, but then they also under police us in the way that black murders go largely unsolved. So they under police our communities as well because they don't care. They come in after the fact. They show up after the fact. They don't stop crime from happening. They're not crime stoppers. All right. They just show up after the fact. And oftentimes escalate the situation, make it worse. All right. So this idea that like, oh no, we need to, we need more of these cops or whatever. It's like, no, you have all that, and this it's still going on. It's because that's not really the job of the police, right? They show up after that.
If you want to fix gang violence, fix the communities, give them money directly, and people won't have to break the law. Absolutely. If you have a real rehabilitative prison system like we touched on earlier, because then people don't get out and they won't be able to, one, not get jobs everywhere, two, not be able to live with a lot of their family members because some apartments don't allow convicts to live there or ex-convicts to live there, and three, be forced into positions where they're going to go commit more crime to survive and or provide for what little family they do. So if you fix these underlying issues, as well as black people having dealt with their trauma of so many things, if we can also maybe touch on mental health while we're there, we could solve a lot of the issues going on with gang violence before we even jump to having to pay to get more fucking police in our communities.
Absolutely.
Get the fuck out of here, bro.
Prevention is better than cure.
This man has a bow tie. We should have known he was gonna feed us
I
some
know,
bullshit.
Right?
We should have known he was coming with some bullshit. Bow tie wearing ass.
I want to quote Tanya Stephens, one of my favorite reggae artists, one of the best lyricists in reggae. Tanya Stephens has a line in one of her songs where she says, "Providing no jobs and telling us stop the crime is like beating a child and telling them not to cry." Okay. Yep. So providing no jobs and telling us stop the crime is like beating a child and telling them not to cry. All right. You can't, on one hand, do the action that's causing it and then turn around and say, oh, but you shouldn't, respond to it. The natural way to respond to it. When you're hungry, you're going to steal a loaf of bread to feed your family. If your children are hungry, you're going to go steal that loaf of bread. You're going to do whatever the hell's necessary to feed yourself and your family. All right. And so the idea that, if you want to stop crime, you gotta stop the systemic problem that creates the crime in the first place. All right. You have to give people the economic security that they need so that they're not forced into situations where they have to commit crimes. All right. So I don't want to get too far off on this. Let's just listen to Joe Biden's response here. But yeah, so Kwame is seeing this clip for the first time. I've already had the pleasure of seeing it. So you can just know that Kwame, that is his natural, just immediate reaction there. All right. And that's the exact reaction I heard when I heard this damn question. All right. Kwame was not ready for what this question was about to be. All right. So I'm glad that we are on the same page there. No surprise. There. All right. Let's hear Joe Biden's response to it. And you know what? I'll pull it back. I'll let him say his question again so that everybody can hear the framing of this question again. And then I'll let Biden say his response. Okay. We'll play the whole clip out. 1 minute. It's a minute and 15 seconds, John.
Hello, Mr. President. Defund the police is discussed as an option for reforming policing. However, there are communities where people live in fear, not of the police, but in fear of the violent gangs who commit crimes in those neighborhoods. How can we be sure that we don't over-legislate police officers so that they can't do their job to protect the law-abiding citizens who live in these high-crime neighborhoods, and yet train officers to police with compassion?
By number one, not defunding the police. We have to put more money in police work. So we have legitimate community policing, and we're in a situation where we change the legislation. No one should go to jail for a drug offense. No one should go to jail for the use of a drug. They should go to drug rehabilitation. Drug rehabilitation, number one. We should be in a position where we change the system of sentencing system to one that relates to a notion of, they should tell you that, is related to making sure that what you do is you focus on making sure that there's rehabilitation. All
right.
Damn, what are we doing? What are we doing? How are we giving this man props for that shit? Like, why are people even clapping for this nigga saying the most basic bullshit ever, that people shouldn't go to jail for like, but why are we clapping?
He's the author. No, he is the author of the crime bill that literally put in. He supported. He was a proponent of the 1986 Crime Commission bill that put in mandatory minimum sentencing. All right, and created the 100-to-1 disparity. The 100-to-1 disparity in crack versus powder cocaine. That was Joe Biden. Okay, that was Joe Biden. Mass incarceration. He is the father. He's the grandfather of mass incarceration in this country. All right, through his 1994 crime bill that he authored. All right, that put in mandatory minimums into sentencing, okay? That's had the 3 strikes law, all right, for drug-related crimes. So you want to talk about people not needing to be locked up for drug-related crimes? Well, Joe Biden, you're the whole fucking reason that they got locked up in the first place, all right? It was you that led that charge, all right? That talked about on the floor of Congress how you don't want these thugs, these super predators coming up and bashing your grandma, your lily white grandma over the head and stealing her purse, all right? That was you that put those images in people's heads, all right? So fuck all the way off, Joe Biden, about people shouldn't be. You're the president of the United States right now. Sign an executive order. One, he could sign an executive order today. He could sign an executive order 3 weeks ago saying that cannabis should be legalized and instructing his attorney general to deschedule it, all right? That he has the power. He is the only person in the country with the power to do so. Him alone, okay? So he has the authority to do that, and he's not. He's not. So if he was really serious, he has the authority to pretty much set the course in action to decriminalize or to legalize all drugs. In Oregon, just in the state of Oregon, not just a few weeks ago, they have now implemented the law that they passed in the last election that says that all drugs are decriminalized in that state. All right. So all drugs have been decriminalized for possessing any amount, whatever amount of drugs for personal use. It is no longer a crime in the state of Oregon. All right. Joe Biden's the president of the United States. You can do that at a federal level. So the idea that nobody should be in jail for. Why don't you sign a damn executive order right now that says that we are going to free the people that are in jail right now for drug-related crimes? Why don't you let them out? All the people that are in jail locked up for non-violent crimes that you got locked up, huh? That your vice president Kamala Harris went in there and locked up all those those black and brown kids for smoking weed, and then laughed about it. How she used to smoke weed herself. Why don't you fix it? You're the president of the United States. If you really believe this, you could do something about it.
Right now.
Yes.
It's we're having a policing is being under a microscope right now in a way that it's never been before. And yet you decided to run with a VP who's a cop. Like it was her nickname. That was like your flex right now. Like, how did we not think that this is man? Like, he's the most like, I can never fuck with this dude. I can never fuck with this dude especially because of this. It makes no sense. And it's just like, you could end it all today, but at the end of the day, we still need to defund the police, right? Because you want to know what they do in Portland, Oregon, when they don't have people smoking weed to chase after? They go lock people up for trying to eat meat.
Yeah.
So maybe we should just defund the police altogether.
Yo,
I don't know. I don't
know.
know, because like so we can't even just fall back to it just being about the war on drugs. And like, if we decriminalize drugs, all drugs tomorrow, then sex workers would probably start getting it even worse than they're already getting it. Yeah. Considering they're already getting it, there will always be another victim. There will always be some poor person in a position to be oppressed and brutalized by these people. We need to defund the police.
Yes, great point. Just great point. Love it. All right. Well, I'm glad that we got to cover all this. We got to talk some cops. I think that's all on our cop stories, and I think that's what we wanted to make sure that we had Kwame around for today. Are you got to take off? You want
to? Can we just talk about my friend, the 2 tweets real quick? The little quick one that we wanted to give a nod to about that happened in Texas.
Oh yes. We can cover that. We can definitely cover that.
I'm gonna take like 5 more minutes, and then I'm gonna have to start.
All right. Yep. Hold on. Let me pull up the story. One sec. I don't think I have it. I didn't. I have it ready and queued. But I somehow I don't think I put it in the agenda. So Tammy might not have the banner for it, but it's this is we're going to talk about the mayor in Texas, Colorado City, Texas, who had some choice words for his constituents. So let me just pull that up. Give me one moment. Please, if you haven't done so already, like, share, subscribe.
Right.
Kwame, where can folks find you?
Find me at patreon.com/raisedfistmedia. Please go check me out, or you can come look at us on YouTube or Twitter. We got some good stuff in the works that we're actually going to do. We've got the Judas and the Black Messiah. I promise y'all, I'm going to watch it. And we're going to do the discussion. I know y'all are waiting on it. I promise y'all.
I already watched it, and I'm ready. I am ready for that conversation.
Absolutely.
Y'all know I love me some Fred Hampton. Shoot, I might try to find an excuse to play some Fred Hampton during this episode here. All right. So I got this ready. Okay. So yeah. A Texas mayor has resigned after telling his residents to fend for themselves during a power outage, saying, quote, "Only the strong will survive." I'll just read you some of what this, some of this article. This was published today, February 17th. So they say, by Tuesday morning, the residents of Colorado City, Texas were getting anxious. More than 24 hours had passed since a deadly Arctic blast knocked out power across the state, leaving them without heat or electricity and below freezing temperatures. To make matters worse, many also lacked running water, forcing them to haul in heavy buckets of snow each time they needed to flush their toilets. So residents turned to a community Facebook group to ask whether the small town planned to open warming shelters, while others wondered if firefighters could do their job without water. But when Colorado City's mayor chimed in, it was to deliver a less than comforting message. The local government had no responsibility to help out its citizens, and only the tough would survive. So here's a quote from Mayor Tim Boyd of Colorado City, Texas. He says, "No one owes you or your family anything. I'm sick and tired of people looking for a damn handout," he posted on Facebook. Boyd's tirade, which also demanded that, quote, lazy residents find their own ways of procuring water and electricity, immediately drew backlash. Later on Tuesday, Boyd announced his resignation and admitted that he could have, quote, used better wording. So, yeah, Kwame put me onto this story. And yeah, that was a special one. You got the mayor of a city telling the residents of that city, you're on your own, folks. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Government is not here to help you. All right. We are here to help ourselves. All right. So what are your thoughts on this, Kwame?
Reading it was absolute. It was wild. I want to make a possible correction. I heard he might have already been in the process of resigning before this tweet, so it might not necessarily been because of this tweet, but the timing's super suspect either way. His first post, if you haven't read it, it's wild. It is bananas. The way he talks, I can't believe someone would have such disdain for the people he's supposed to be representing. My God, he sounds like Red Foreman. Jesus Christ. Like, how do you dislike your own family so much? It's your community. It's literally your job. These are your people. How do you talk about them like that? Like, it's pull your bootstraps up. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps 2.0 throughout the whole message, and it's a disdain as well as he feels insulted that you'd ask him to do anything.
It's just so crazy because, I mean, that the purpose of government is to protect the community, all right, and to protect the most vulnerable in the community. So to say only the strong will survive, like, your job is literally, as the mayor of a city, your job is to ensure that the weak survive as well, all right, that the vulnerable survive as well. That is the purpose, the only purpose that government has, all right, is to protect its constituents, to protect the community. And so here you have a mayor saying, no, it's not our responsibility to protect the people that are suffering here without electricity or water in the middle of an Arctic blast. People are freezing, you know, people are hungry, are afraid. And you have a mayor of a city saying, sorry, you're on your own. I mean, he literally said, you know, he suggested, quote from this article, he goes on, it says, Boyd suggested that residents without electricity should simply, quote, step up and come up with a game plan. Those without running water could either deal with it or, quote, think outside of the box to survive and supply water to your family. He did not offer any further guidance, such as where safe drinking water or reliable electricity could be found. He says, only the strong will survive and the weak will perish, he wrote. I mean, it's literally...
He's just saying the loud part, the quiet part out loud, to be honest with you. If you want to talk about how these motherfuckers really care about their constituents, he got caught saying it real loud.
Absolutely. And this is the sort of Republican ideology and the sort of some of the libertarian-esque like ideology of like no government, small government, you know, this idea that somehow because we call this thing the government, that it is inherently bad, in that if we call something a private corporation, that is somehow inherently good, is just, that's the sort of libertarian mentality and the Republican mentality of like, oh, private is good, public is bad somehow. You know, corporation good, government bad. You know, the reality is both have their good things. Some do certain things well, some do, you know, they do other things well, you know, and that's the reality, but they don't have a nuanced take. It's all just anti-government, you know, sort of this is the like Boogaloo boy sort of, you know, we just want to destroy the government. And this is what happens when you destroy a government and when you take away government, people are left with no support, no protection in their time of need, right? And that's truly the definition of this. The reason for government to exist is to make sure that we can protect people. You know, when
your job. And his second post, do they talk about the second post in here?
You tell me. Is I don't know which one, what order he did these in. He said, folks, God has given us the tools to support ourselves in times like this, he wrote, claiming that those who expected the city to come to their aid were, quote, sadly a product of a socialist government. All right. So if you believe that the government should help you in any way, shape, or form, you are a product of a socialist government. How anyone in America is a product of a socialist government, I don't even know. Where, how? We are capitalist to our bones. We have two capitalist parties. The Democratic Party.
It's so capitalist that I don't know if y'all know what's going on in Texas, but they turned off the power because they were afraid of losing money because the prices were skyrocketing. So they'd rather just let people freeze than that, so they turn the power off.
Yeah. You know, I mean,
Capitalism.
that's capitalism gonna capitalism, baby. Right. He goes on to say, right. He went on to say that the comments were taken out of context, he claimed, right? He said it did not apply to the elderly, right? Because everybody knows the elderly vote, right? So he tries to get himself out of it, right? Because the elderly, again, are a vulnerable population. Elderly, children, you know, sick, disabled people, they're going to be the ones that need the help the most, all right? Yeah. And who are in the most dangerous, in the most danger. He went on to say, quote, I was only making the statement that those folks that are too lazy to get up and fend for themselves, but are capable, should not be dealt a handout. You know, who is he talking? Who are these people that are capable of supplying their own water and electricity in the middle of a city? Like, we literally designed our cities and towns so that we can, you know, we built them up. We didn't, you know, we've moved people away from fresh bodies of water. If we didn't have cities that promised us that, hey, we're a society, and a part of being in a society and being in a civilized society is that we're going to take care of these things that we call utilities. You know, they call it a utility for a reason. It's supposed to be, you know, utilized by all of us, right? And so, you know, people move to these cities under the guise that they are going to have these utilities provided to them. Otherwise, people would all congregate around rivers like we used to back in the olden days, you know, but we stopped doing that because we were promised by our civilized society that we will protect you. We will provide you with these we will make sure that these basic needs are met. Who the hell can provide their own electricity? Who are these people that have a means of providing their own electricity? Like, what is he talking about? Who's going to be able to do that? Like, you don't know that elderly people, literally, some of them have machines that they're surviving on that are connected to electrical, you know, that are connected to electricity. All right. So if you stop electricity, you stop some people from breathing. People on ventilators need electricity in order to breathe. Okay. So how are those people going to just go fend for themselves and make their own electricity? Like, what the, like, are you serious?
Jefferson, son.
Got a bunch of old people and children out there with like kites out there. Like, I'm going to get this ventilator going again. I promise.
What the fuck? This is
it's crazy. Man. It's ridiculous. This is what, you know.
He said that it was all taken out of context.
What was the context? What was the right context? I want to know. Like, what was the right context?
The context was the whole, you know, his people are like freezing and don't have power and shit. You know, that context. In the context of that. But like, you got to put it back in that context to understand how not problematic it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then he got sad because I guess his wife got in trouble, and he said that, you know, he was speaking as a citizen, not a mayor.
Oh, yes. This was out of his, you know, this was in his capacity as a private citizen. He made these comments in his capacity as a private citizen, he said. No, bro, you're the damn mayor. All right. Yeah, exactly. He's like, sorry, y'all.
He's like, hold on, I'm gonna take my mayor badge off and tell you real quick. All right, wink, wink. Then he put the mayor badge back on. He was good.
Yeah. That's how that works. I forgot that's how that works, y'all. So, this is the Republican ideology of just like everybody F you. You know, you're all on your own. This is this like sort of like, you know, this is the libertarian mindset of like, you know, anarcho-capitalism. And this is why it's not a sustainable ideology, and it's one that we have to fight against. And we are not. It's antithetical to, you know, you can't protect the vulnerable without some form of government. Okay. And that's my real take. As a socialist, I believe in government still. I just believe in, you know, a government that allows for some for real self-determination.
I also want to just point out that like all of this I gave you the context of what's going on there as far as like them losing power, the winter storm that they've been relentlessly hit with in places like Texas, devastating, killing people, tons of people freezing to death. Uh, like this is all also in the middle of a pandemic. So maybe we need something like a large overarching system that has power that could step in to help the people. Something like a government.
It's almost like we need that. It's almost like we might need that.
We need that. But also, we then also see, because of how this has been poorly handled, what it looks like when the government doesn't do anything. So, like, I think that I understand how people's solution is like, we don't need a government, we should go into chaos and just fend for ourselves. But like, what if the answer is to take that and make it work as it's intended? Like,
exactly.
There's not a lot of things I want to reform that I don't think we should just completely do away with and reconsider totally. But this government thing, we might be onto something there if we could just, get rid of the fucked up toxic parts of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing is, it's like the private capitalist enterprises and corporations, they had, they could, where are they in this? Why didn't they stave off this problem? A lot of these, like the utility companies and stuff, are run by private, corporations and private entities. They're not public utilities. Like most places do not, like, these are not public utilities. They may be utilities. They are not public. They are privately run. They are private corporations maintaining these utilities. P&E or PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric in California was responsible for all of the fires that, there were a ton of fires that they caused from poor maintenance of their electrical lines and things like that. So these are private corporations. They knew that, did they not know that cold weather happens sometimes? Where were they? Why didn't they come in and save the day? The reality is that it's government's job to do this stuff, because private corporations, they don't find it to be profitable. And so they have no incentive to do that. So you're never going to see a private capitalist, entity doing these things, because it's not profitable to do so. That's where government has to exist and has to step in and protect the people. And you got the government here when you elect these Republicans and these libertarian-esque Republicans and right wingers. This is what you get. You get a whole bunch of like a middle finger and, and just you're on your own, right?
Have you tried not being poor? Solution?
Yep. It's gross. It's terrible, right? It's terrible. So that was a good one. Thank you for passing that story along to Kwame. Kwame gave us a lot of gems today, passed along a lot of gems today. So shout out to Kwame for
come through with a little bit of foolishness for y'all.
Yep. Deeply appreciate it. What up? Just want to say what's up to Steve Alvarez in the comments there. I see you, Steve. Good to see you. I know you. Steve says he's got to take off, but just want to say a shout out to Steve. Steve's one of our, he is our number one supporter at Radical Democracy. So thank you, and big shout out to Steve for all of his support. And see you soon, comrade. See you soon, brother. All right. So thank you for being here with us. All right. Kwame, you dipsetting?
Yeah, I'm gonna take off and go do the father thing.
All right.
It was dope getting to come through and chop it up with y'all. I will see you soon in our Judas and the Black Messiah video. That's gonna be dope and fun. Y'all should come through for that. I also seen your request, Steve. We'll make sure we definitely do some more film and entertainment leftist analysis. Maybe we could do a little community watch along or something. I haven't seen Sorry to Bother You in a long time, and we can all get together and discuss that or something like that. I don't know. We'll leave it to y'all. We'll see what they say in the comments. You tell us what you want to see us talk about. But other than that, thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks for being here, brother. Always appreciate it. We'll catch you soon. All right. Well, that's Kwame Norville, everyone. Raise Fist Media. Appreciate him coming on, joining us today to chat. That was fun. Always great to have him on. Always a good time. Even when we're talking about some dark stories, he has a way of, still infusing some humor in there. So always appreciate it. And I am going to just keep powering along. All right. So we got a ton of stories to get to. Like I said, I'm going to try to get through as many of these as possible. we'll wrap up once I start burning out here. But I got some more stories that I have to get to, so I'm not letting this go. Don't worry if you can't stick around the whole time. Don't worry for the full shows. And I know we're doing it at an awkward time of day, so I didn't expect as many people to even be here as usual. And that's the case. Of course, we're doing this at a different time than we usually record. I just got my own life situations that I'm trying to deal with, and so it's been too long since we last did a show, so had to make sure that a show got done today. And so in order to do that, I had to do it at an earlier time. So just didn't want to wait couldn't leave these stories hanging out there for any longer. All right, so let me jump to our next story. All right, we're going to talk. Let me just see what our next story is. Okay, all right, let's talk Joe Biden and the minimum wage. All right, one sec. So yeah, there is a debate raging. Okay, and before I do this, just please, if you're just joining us, like, subscribe, share. Deeply appreciate that. Support the show on Ko-fi or Patreon if you can afford to do so. Links are in the description box below, along with all links to all of the sources that we referenced here today. So if you're interested in reading or seeing any more of those, the links are in the description box below. So please check that out. All right. So, all right. Let's keep pushing along here. So there is a debate raging on in the United States about the minimum wage, and it is full time for us to weigh in on this. Of course, we've talked about this in passing on this show from time to time. This is one of the things, we are in support of the fight for 15. I constantly said that I don't think that $15 goes far enough, and hopefully I will help you to see, any folks watching. I hope to try to relay that and convey that today further. But Biden has there's been some flip-flopping on this idea of a $15 minimum wage. This was the one concession that Bernie got after he conceded to Joe Biden during the primary, when he did his announcement conceding to Joe Biden in the primary and supporting and throwing his support behind Joe Biden. The one policy that they talked about was the $15 minimum wage, and that Biden would fight for the $15 minimum wage. Biden talked about it in his speeches. He talked about at the debates, Joe Biden mentioned the $15 minimum wage and claimed to be a supporter of the $15 minimum wage. And so it would be absurd to me. I mean, I said before, that, we'll see we'll see. I'll believe it when I see it. And the further this thing goes along, the more I worry that we're not going to see a minimum wage increase to $15 an hour under Joe Biden. So let me, and I just want, so what I'd like to show is I'm going to show you a clip of Joe Biden. It was an interview on CBS with Norah O'Donnell, and she asked him a question about the minimum wage. I want to show you that clip, and then also just talk about what the reality is of passing a $15 minimum wage and how that would work, because I want to show you that is absolutely doable by Joe Biden and by the democratically controlled Congress. All right. So first up, I'll play this video clip from an interview on CBS. This was the Super Bowl interview with Joe Biden.
You also want to raise the minimum wage to $15. Is that something you would be willing to negotiate on in order to get Republican support?
Well, apparently that's not going to occur because of the rules of the United States Senate.
So you're saying the minimum wage won't be in this?
My guess is it will not be in it, but I do think that we should have a minimum wage stand by itself, $15 an hour, and work your way up to the 15. It doesn't have to be boom. And all the economics show, if you do that, the whole economy rises. I'm prepared as President of the United States on a separate negotiation on minimum wage to work my way up from what it is now, which is pain. Look, no one should work 40 hours a week and live below the poverty wage. And if you're making less than $15 an hour, you're living below the poverty wage.
But that may not be in your American Rescue Plan.
No, I put it in, but I don't think it's going to survive.
Let's turn.
Okay, so you heard it there. You heard it, straight from the horse's mouth. He says that he doesn't believe that a $15 minimum wage is going to make it into this, this relief bill that's about to be, that the Democrats are currently working on and configuring. They talked about a $1.9 trillion stimulus. Don't really care what the dollar amount is. Really care about the specifics of it. But I know $1.9 trillion likely isn't enough. And the real danger, even liberal economists agree that the real danger, and even Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, has said that the real danger is in not going far enough, right? And not going big enough with this relief package. That's the real danger. It's not, the danger isn't, this relief package being too small. Now, something that Biden said there is it's a lie. There's a lie. Right now, the way that this bill is going to be passed, there will be zero, hear me now, quote me later. Not a single Republican will vote in favor of this relief bill, okay? Not a single Republican. The split in the Senate right now is there's a 50-50 split in the Senate, with Kamala Harris being the tie-breaking vote. Whenever there's 100 senators, if you have 50 Democrats and 50 Republicans, then the vice president of the United States is the tie-breaking vote, all right? So Mike Pence had to come in and do tie-breaking votes when we had a 50-50 Congress. When we had a 50-50 Senate under Trump, and now Kamala Harris is the tie-breaking vote with a 50-50 Senate under Joe Biden. All right. And so you have the only way you can pass a bill with less than 60 votes, all right, is for one. Okay, so if you want to pass a bill, you have to get 60 votes, all right, to be able to get over the ability for someone to use what's called the filibuster. All right. And the filibuster allows, it used to be like you had to stand up there and talk endlessly. Now the senators just have to say, we want to filibuster. And then if they say they're going to filibuster, then the only way to get past the filibuster is with 60 votes. All right. So you need 60 votes in the Senate. That would mean you need all 50 Democrats to vote in favor of it, plus 10 Republicans. All right. So you need to get 10 Republicans to vote in favor if you want to get around the filibuster. All right. So you need 60 votes total. All right. There is 0% chance that you get 10 Republicans. You're not going to get one Republican to vote in favor of this. All right. So there is 0% chance that you get any Republicans to vote for this. All right. So you're definitely not getting 10 Republicans to vote on it. All right. So what that means is that then the only way that you can pass something through Congress, through the Senate, without a requirement of a supermajority, without the 60 vote threshold, right, which they call cloture, right, achieving cloture. In order to get around that, the only mechanism that we have is something called budget reconciliation. And if you invoke budget reconciliation and you use the process of budget reconciliation, then through that process, you only need a simple majority to pass legislation. The last time that budget reconciliation was used was in the $6 trillion tax cut for the wealthy that Donald Trump did in 2017. They used budget reconciliation to not require them to have to need any Democrats to vote in favor of the bill, which none did. All right. No Democrats voted in favor of the tax cuts for the rich, but the tax cuts for the rich passed through Congress. Before that, it was used for twice under Bush for the Bush tax cuts. All right. Which were terrible to our economy, increased the deficit, right? And only helped the wealthy disproportionately, immensely disproportionately benefited the wealthy and the largest corporations, right? So the Republicans are not afraid to use budget reconciliation to help the rich, right? Now, so with budget reconciliation, it says, okay, the way that budget reconciliation works is that under each budget, you have an annual budget, right? Once a year, you have a budget that gets passed. Once they pass a budget, then you can under each budget, each annual budget, you can use reconciliation up to a maximum of 3 times, really. All right. You can use it to alter revenues, to alter spending, or to alter the debt ceiling. All right. So those are the 3 mechanisms by which you can use budget reconciliation. You can do it up to 1. You can only use each of those mechanisms once in an annual budget. So if you pass a bill that uses 2 of those mechanisms, then or all 3, then you're only allowed to pass 1 bill. All right. So if you have to alter the revenues, the spending, and the debt ceiling, then you only get 1 bill to pass it in. All right. So the maximum you can use it in is 3. The maximum we've ever seen it used is twice. All right. That's because largely you can't alter spending you can't alter revenues without also altering spending, right? So revenues is like the tax code, right? You can change the taxes, increase taxes. The government takes in more revenues when they increase taxes, right? Or you can alter the spending, right? We're going to spend less on this program or that program, and then you can make up for the budget that way, right? And when you do that, right? So the Democrats at most, they're going to get really, let's be real, 2 cracks at budget reconciliation, meaning only 2 bills for an entire year can pass with that, under the guise of budget reconciliation. Really, it's only really ever been used once for each budget year. They did it twice. They used it twice. The Republicans used it twice in a single year, but it's a tricky mechanism that I don't want to get too deep into. But essentially what happens is that you can use it again in a second calendar year, because the second budget will be passed in at the end of the year, in the fall, September, or I think it's August, September. Another budget will be passed for the 2022 calendar year. And you can use budget reconciliation again. With the Republicans, what did they try to use budget reconciliation for the second time? They used budget reconciliation the second time to pass through the Senate a repeal of the Affordable Care Act, and unfortunately, it didn't. It lost. It got. I don't think that it was vetoed by Trump. I may be misremembering. Either I don't think that it passed through with enough votes in the Senate in the end. I think famously, like, John McCain voted against it, against the repeal of the ACA, the famous like thumbs down. That was that. And it didn't pass, and it blew up their opportunity to use budget reconciliation to repeal the ACA. So you'll see the Republicans are willing to use budget reconciliation to assault the poor and marginalized people in this country, and to help the wealthiest people. Now's our chance to see if Democrats are willing to use budget reconciliation to help poor and marginalized people. And what we're seeing here, the Democrats. So what you can do, the Democrats have the opportunity. Listen, they're going to get 1, maybe 2 cracks at this. All right, 1. Most likely, all right, and a second one next year is the real likelihood, all right. So you get 2 bills that you get to pass with budget reconciliation. I mean, that's really so your goal, if you're serious about helping people, is to stuff as much stuff as you can. You want to stuff as many things into that bill as humanly possible, because you cannot, you don't get to use budget reconciliation as much as you want. So when Biden sits here and talks about a standalone bill for a $15 minimum wage, please understand that means he's saying he does not support a $15 minimum wage. I want you to hear that and process it that way, okay? Because you cannot pass anything. You will not pass anything through a standalone bill. Why? Because you would have to use budget reconciliation on a standalone bill, which means you're burning through your only chance to use budget reconciliation. And again, they've never used budget reconciliation twice on one budget, really. Okay, not that I'm aware of. All right, and not in modern history that I'm aware of. All right, so at most we're going to get 1 crack at this per year, and so we get 1 bill. You get 1 bill to use budget reconciliation. Okay, and so they got to stuff. The Democrats have to stuff everything they truly believe in, all right, into this bill. Now, there's something that's called the Byrd Rule that says that you can't put anything in there that doesn't directly relate to the purpose of the bill, right? And so that which is fine, but it's very easy to make the argument, and you can't do anything you can't use anything that doesn't actually impact the budget, right? So whatever you use has to impact the budget. Well, the CBO just scored the $15 minimum wage proposal. The Congressional Budget Office just scored it, meaning that they believe that it does have an impact on the budget. All right, the Congressional Budget Office, they just scored it, saying, yes, raising the minimum wage absolutely has an effect on the federal budget. Why? Because, sorry, and I'm shouting, I'm sorry, all right? But why does raising the minimum wage have an impact on the budget? Because when people make more money when people have more income, they pay more taxes, right? If the more you make, the more you pay in taxes, right? So by raising people's wages, you raise the amount of revenue that the government is taking in. So that's them using revenues there to increase, right? So you're able to use the revenue mechanism of budget reconciliation in order to make sure that you only need 50 votes. There are 50 Democrats in the Congress. So the only people that Democrats are negotiating with right now is themselves. This is the Democrats negotiating with themselves, and they're negotiating themselves down and talking about not putting a $15 minimum wage in there. Listen, even with a $15 minimum wage, that is by and large, like that's what Biden just talked about. He said, if you're making less than $15 an hour, you're below the poverty line. That's because $15 an hour gets you pretty much right to the poverty line. So $15 an hour is not a living wage. It's a starvation wage. It's a survival. It's a survival wage, right? It's survival wages. These are not dignified living wages that we're talking about. We're just talking about helping people to survive. Okay. So, this is where we have to see if the Democrats have any strength. And Bernie Sanders is the chair of the Senate Budget Committee, meaning he is the one with the authority. He didn't get, Biden didn't put him in that role. He got that role because of his seniority in the Senate. All right. So luckily, Bernie Sanders is the head of the Senate Budget Committee, and he's the one with the authority to invoke budget reconciliation. But he needs a bill to get to his desk that says that it includes a $15 minimum wage. So they must put the $15 minimum wage into this bill. It absolutely is tied to COVID. People are being paid starvation wages in the middle of a global pandemic, all right, in the middle of a pandemic, all right, that has killed nearly 500,000, nearly 500,000 Americans have died in less than 1 year, all right, because of this pandemic. And people, essential workers, are going out there to work making, you know what, let me play a clip for you. Maybe this will help to convey, if people think that they don't, if anyone doesn't support a $15 minimum wage, hopefully listening to just a couple of people here will hopefully change your mind about that. So let me play you a clip here of some Black folks talking about, it's Black History Month. I think it's important to hear from Black people, at this time. I'm sad that, again, they gave us the coldest, shortest month. But let's take advantage of it, and hopefully people are paying a little bit more attention to the pain of Black people. But this extends to every kind of worker, not just Black workers, of course. So a lot of people there's all kinds of arguments that people try to make about $15 minimum wage. Oh, you can't pay children that much. Oh, get out of it. Like Kwame and I are planning to do a whole video debunking a lot of the propaganda around the minimum wage. So I will get into more detail on this. But for now, I just want to play you this clip. This is from Democracy Now! And it's just a clip of workers striking, and they're going to talk about it. I'll just play the clip and let it speak for itself here.
As Congress debates whether to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, fast food workers in 15 cities held a Black History Month strike Tuesday as part of the Fight for 15 campaign, and to emphasize the, quote, crisis among Black communities who face generations of low pay and insufficient protections on the job. These are some of their voices.
Hi, my name is Mark Logan. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, a fast food worker at McDonald's. Minimum wage is $9.45. That's not enough. I'm going on strike today for a $15 an hour in the union job.
My name is Sequoia Carroll. I'm a member of McDonald's and a member of NC Fight 15. I've been in this organization for 6 years. I'm doing this because my kids need me. I'm pregnant with a baby on the way. It's a third baby, and I already have 2 kids. I can't take this no more. There was times when I didn't have a break. I came in on my day off, and my own manager didn't tell me how much I'm getting paid an hour. The highest check I ever got was literally $291. I can't take it no more. I'm halfway homeless. I need this $15 an hour, not only for me, but for everybody.
I was 16 years old, first day working in fast food. Just like the young lady that spoke today, fresh on the job, I didn't understand what was going on. So I learned to put an armor on. I continue to smile and be friendly with my customers, and I teach the crew to put on the same armor that I wear. But this armor gets heavy, real heavy when you can't pay your bills. Yeah, right.
That was a Taco Bell worker there, was the last person that you heard talk there. That's just heartbreaking. That's just freaking heartbreaking to hear Sequoia talking about how, she's got children to feed, and she is not, she's steps away from being homeless. All right. A full-time worker. That's not a civilized society, in my opinion. You're not a civilized society if somebody can work a full-time job, 40 hours a week, and still be steps away from homelessness. A mother, a working mom. We don't, anyone talking about, not supporting a $15 minimum wage, again, that is just the bare minimum. That's the bare minimum. And listen, the thing about the $15 minimum wage that they're talking about is that the $15 minimum wage, it's not like, hey, $15 minimum wage, we're going to sign the bill, and then the minimum wage is going to increase tomorrow or next week to $15. No, they're talking about raising the minimum wage over 5 years to $15 an hour. Listen, we were talking about a $15 minimum wage back in 2016, 2015 and 2016, during those campaigns, during those Democratic primaries when there was Hillary Clinton against, Bernie Sanders back then. They were talking about a $15 minimum wage that would ramp up over a 5-year period. All right. That would have made the minimum wage $15 an hour by 2021. All right. By this year, if Bernie Sanders had won back in 2016, or if Bernie Sanders had won back in 2016, we would have had by 2021 a $15 minimum wage. All right. To talk about a $15 minimum wage 5 years out from now, I just watched a video. Economist Richard Wolff explained that by 2025, because of the 2 to 3% annual inflation rate, by 2025, $15 will be able to buy you as much stuff as $13.80 can buy you today. Okay. So by the time that the $15 minimum wage actually gets implemented, it's going to be actually less than a $14 minimum wage would be today. All right. Based on the real wages. All right. So at $15 an hour, you're talking about $30,000 a year before taxes. It's like $32,000 a year before taxes for $15 an hour. After taxes, you're talking about $20,000. Like, that is not enough. They have a map. They have this map, right? And it shows like at, what do you consider, you have to ask yourself, like, what do you consider to be a minimum wage, right? And the way that one organization has defined a minimum livable wage. This is from the National Low Income Housing Coalition. All right. They're at nlihc.org. All right. So this nonprofit organization who studies this, and what they have defined as a living wage is a wage in which a person working full-time 40 hours a week can afford a 2-bedroom apartment in that state without, the average 2-bedroom apartment in that state without spending more than 30% of their income on rent. Okay. Because that's what that's the sort of economic factors that they've determined to be, that's what they consider a living wage. All right. Based on that as a living wage, this is what the map of the United States looks like. This is what the living wages would need. This is what the minimum wage would need to be in each state in order to achieve that, in order for a person. Okay. So again, this is a, for 2019, for the year 2019, how much it would cost. So this represents the hourly wage that a full-time worker must earn working 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, in order to afford the fair market rent for a 2-bedroom rental home without paying more than 30% of their income in each state. All right. And let me just list off some of these to you. If you just take a broad sweeping look at this, pretty much the lowest that you'll find is in, Arizona, $14.26 in Arizona. This was in 2019. Mind you, it's gone up in 2020 and now we're in 2021. All right. So $14.26 is the absolute lowest, and that's in Arizona. All right. You got places like West Virginia, a little bit more, $14.27. You got $14.43 for Missouri, Alabama, $14.92. So you can see that the minimum wage in the most affordable places in the country, it's a $15 minimum wage. All right, is the lowest that it can go in order to be able to achieve this. All right, $15. But you got places like where I live here in Massachusetts, you got people arguing over a $15 minimum wage. I got people on my timeline arguing about a $15 minimum wage here in Massachusetts, where if you wanted to do that in Massachusetts, the minimum wage would need to be $33.81. $33.81. That's over $70,000 a year. Okay. $70,000 a year. That's a living wage in Massachusetts. All right. The talk about $15, it's the bare minimum. We're not even scraping the surface. We're talking about people just barely scraping by with $15 an hour. And we're fighting over this. We're debating this. Come on. This shouldn't be up for debate. This should not be up for debate. In Connecticut, it's $25.40. I know we got people watching from California. That's $34.69 in California, nearly $35 an hour in California. I know we got what up from Washington State. $27.78 would need to be the minimum wage in Washington State for you to attain a 2-bedroom rental house at fair market rent. Okay, without having to spend more than 30% of your income. All right, so I mean, it's painful. It's painful to hear people debating over this. Damn, did I said Arizona? I kept saying Arizona. It's Arkansas. I'm so sorry. It's Arkansas. I apologize. I kept saying Arizona. That's Arkansas. That's $14.20. Arizona is $19.52. I apologize. Deeply apologize. So it's much more in Arizona actually. So that was Arkansas, $14.26. Deeply apologize. Mark McKeever, thank you for the correction there. Who says, Mark McKeever, shout out to our Patreon Mark McKeever, who says, please don't confuse my state of Arizona with Arkansas. Thank you for the correction, Mark. Appreciate that. That's why we love our audience here. And Sedalia says that barely even covers it too. I can't imagine supporting a family with that money. Do the people who inform these policies even understand cost of living? Exactly. Like, this is why we need a $15 minimum wage tied to cost of living and rate of inflation. Like, with that's the only sane, sustainable policy, is to create a minimum wage that is directly connected to the cost of living and the rate of inflation. Like, just tie it to cost of living, which includes the rate of inflation. Just say cost of living, tie it to the cost of living. So you should $15 minimum, and then just have a multiplier for everyone else depending on your cost of living. If your cost of living is twice as much as the minimum, then your minimum wage is twice as much as the minimum. So when we're talking $15 minimum wage, I mean, this is the bare minimum. And you got Joe Biden, who, they said, I heard so many people say, all you got to do, shut up and just vote for Joe Biden. And then after you vote for him, then once he's elected, then we can push him to the left. Well, where are those people at? Because ever since Joe Biden has been elected, all I've seen him do is shift further and further to the right. Am I saying that I wanted Donald Trump to be president? Absolutely not. And I think everybody knows that. I abhor Donald Trump. I absolutely did not want Donald Trump to be president. But this is why, we had a chance at Bernie. We had a chance at Bernie, and the neoliberal corporate Democratic establishment, they came in. Barack Obama, my buddy, my guy, Barack Obama, came in and used his power to stomp out any chance of Bernie Sanders becoming our next president. And so I'm just, I just wanted to show this and to highlight this, because I think that it gets lost in the conversation about two things. One, what the minimum wage should be. Should we have this minimum wage $15? Is $15 too high? They love to say, like, oh, you don't understand what it's like over here in my red state or my rural state, or no, sorry, but $15 is the minimum everywhere across the country if we're talking about letting people live in any kind of basic dignified way. And don't bring me the excuse of like, oh, children have these jobs. One, children shouldn't have jobs. All right, children should be able to be children without talking about jobs. And the reality is, every job that a child has, it's also adults having that job too. Did you see it? Oh, it's McDonald's. Oh, that's just for kids. Oh, teenagers work in those jobs. You don't need more than $15 an hour. No, I'm sorry. Did you not just listen? That all those jobs are also held by women, by parents, by adults. Oftentimes disproportionately Black and brown women. So you got to miss me with that. Oh, they don't need a living wage. I just don't accept that. So. All right. And Biden backtracking on this, or saying that it can't make it into the bill, is absolute BS. It can make it into this bill. It must make it into this bill. And in fact, there are two Democratic senators who have come out and spoken out against it. Joe Manchin from West Virginia and Kirsten Sinema from Arizona, little Arizona, where, West Virginia's minimum wage would have to be, again, in 2019, at least $14.27. Joe Manchin has come out and said that he would support an $11 minimum wage. So, yeah, sorry, you're still going to have to live in poverty, all right? Still got to live in poverty. Sorry, constituents. Paula Jean Swearingen, folks, all right? If she runs again against Joe Manchin, you must support her. You must get rid of Joe Manchin, because these are the people, these are right-wing Democrats that stand in the way of progress. The Democrats are not all good. In fact, they're mostly not good. In Arizona, Kirsten Sinema State, it's $19.52 would need to be a minimum wage to have a dignified living, minimum wage. And she's talking about she doesn't support $15 an hour. That's just too much. Even though years ago she claimed to support an increase to the minimum wage. Apparently 15 is just too much. $15 by 2025. Okay, again, remember that's going to be the equivalent of $13.80 today. All right. So what I talk about when I wrote up a whole political platform. I was talking about back in 2017, talking about a $20 minimum wage. The fight should be for 20 by 2020. That's what 20 in 2020. That's what we should have been talking about. We should have been talking about the $20 minimum wage. Because why does the minimum wage have to be just barely enough to skate by, like just barely a survival wage? We can't do that. Just make the minimum wage a living wage. And I don't care if some jobs end up being minimum wage jobs. Well, minimum wage is a living wage now. So I don't care if it's a minimum wage job. It will be a living wage and I can support that. So, all right, I'm going to keep pushing along here because, we got a lot of stories to get to and we're already past the 2-hour mark. And I know people don't want to hear me ramble on too much longer. All right. I know. I apologize, y'all. I'm going to hush soon, but I got a couple more stories I want to get to. And then the reality is, let me look. Okay. All right. Well, while we're on the topic of minimum wage, actually, I'll do my next story actually is directly connected to that. So this is a hashtag today I learned because I literally just discovered this. And apparently in the United States of America, in our great, wonderful United States of America, it is legal to pay disabled workers less than the minimum wage. So apparently, and this law has been on the books for decades, for like 80 years now, apparently, over 80 years actually. This is an article out of Vox, and it says a loophole in federal law allows companies to pay disabled workers $1 an hour. $1 an hour for disabled people. All right. Disabled workers are being paid $1 an hour. One nonprofit workshop paid them in gift cards. Now, that turned out to be illegal. Okay, I'll spoiler alert. That actually turns out to be illegal. You can't pay them in gift cards, but you can totally legally pay disabled workers $1 an hour. And in fact, you can pay them less than $1 an hour. Okay, let me just read from this. Rock River Valley Self-Help Enterprises, an Illinois nonprofit, billed itself as a vocational training program for people with disabilities, but it essentially operated as a subcontractor for local factories, providing menial tasks to workers with developmental disabilities, such as scraping debris from metal casts. Last week, the Department of Labor, this is a 2018 article, so this is an older article, but like I said, I just discovered this. I didn't know that this was the law, so I'm just sharing this with you because if I'm just learning this, my guess is that other people are unaware of this as well, right? Because I spend my life like absorbed in like labor laws and all this sort of stuff, and I wasn't even aware of this. So Kwame was the one that actually told me about this, actually, in fact, in a conversation we had offline. So last week, the Department of Labor took action against the company, quote, after finding nearly 250 workers with disabilities were being exploited. One of the ways they were being exploited, Self-Help paid some workers with gift cards instead of money. So the DOL's announcement underscores the grim employment landscape for many disabled workers. Several nonprofits, including one in Seattle, have recently been cited for underpaying workers with disabilities. But while Self-Help's infractions are outrageous, it's also worth noting that federal law allows companies to provide less compensation to some workers with disabilities. They go on to say that paying workers with disabilities in gift cards is unlawful. Paying them a sub-minimum wage is legal. That's because current law allows employers to pay as little as $1 per hour or less to workers with disabilities if they, quote, can't perform a job as well as a person who is not disabled. The current federal minimum wage is $7.25. Sorry, I didn't mention that. The federal minimum wage has been $7.25. It was $7.25 when Obama and Joe Biden came into power in 2008, and it was $7.25 when Obama and Joe Biden left office. Okay, so that's why, I was skeptical about Joe Biden raising the minimum wage or really caring about this issue in the first place, because he clearly doesn't really care about this issue. If he did, he would have raised the minimum wage back in 2008 or 2012, or, you know, anytime in that 8 years, they could have raised the minimum wage. So it's an exemption to the Fair Labor Standards Act that has been in place for 80 years. Okay. So yeah, I just had to mention this and just point out and just let people know that this goes on, that these companies are allowed to get waivers and pay disabled people, you know, some of the most vulnerable amongst us, to pay them less, you know, as low as $1 an hour for work. And in many cases, these disabled workers are doing the same work with the same rate of productivity as non-disabled workers. And the idea that you can carve out an exemption for some of the most vulnerable people in our society is a disgusting practice that absolutely should be abolished. There should be no exception, no exemption for disabled workers. I'm sorry, the idea that behind this was like, oh, if we allow companies to exploit the disabled people further, then that might allow them, you know, that might allow more disabled people to be hired by companies. Listen, if the option is exploitation, you know, or no job, give me the no job and enough social services to take care of people. All right. This disabled people shouldn't be forced into work. Now, let me tell you, know, some people want to work. You want to feel like you're contributing to society. You want to participate. Sure. Great. But if we're going to do that, then they deserve a minimum wage is a minimum wage for everybody. There should be no exemptions, no exceptions, no sub minimum wage for tipped workers. None of that BS. There should be no exceptions, no exemptions to a minimum wage. Because as soon as they do that, it just allows for loopholes for people to be exploited. We can't allow that to happen. All right. That's my spiel on minimum wage for today. Like I said, I'm going to do a whole deep dive, you know, into minimum wage, debunking some of the common tropes around minimum wage and the common, you know, poor, weak arguments made against a minimum wage. I will gladly debunk all of them. So yeah. All right, pushing along here. Sorry. I'm gonna try to stop yelling, y'all, but it's difficult sometimes. I need to take my headphones off sometimes. I don't know. Well, we'll do that for a little bit. See what that's all about. All right, got some more stories I want to get to here. So, all right, yeah, let's try to. Actually, I'm gonna need headphones for this next story. Okay. Okay, sorry, let me just give me 1 second while I pull this next clip up. Okay. You know, I can't let Biden off the hook for anything. Absolutely not. And, you know, so we got to pay attention. Just because Trump is gone does not mean all the, you know, the policies that continued under Trump or started under Trump have gone away, right? A lot of people thought that, oh, you elect Joe Biden, then Trump bad, Trump goes away, all of the problems that happened under Donald Trump somehow magically go away. Not the case. All right. So let me show you, highlight that in action for you here.
This is Democracy Now! I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. President Biden ordered a 100-day moratorium on deportations as one of his first acts in office. But on Monday, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, deported at least 72 people to Haiti. Those deported included a 2-month-old baby and 21 other babies and children, which seems to contradict the order by a federal judge that blocked the moratorium but left in place instructions that only the most serious immigration cases should be subject to deportation. The Guardian reports the adults and children were deported on 2 flights to the Haitian capital, Port-au-Prince, as the country faces skyrocketing political violence and protests against the Haitian president's U.S.-backed regime. They've been going on for months, these protests. Their push came after hundreds were deported within Biden's first days in office, mostly from Haiti and African countries, including a man named Paul Piralus, who was deported to Haiti. New York Congressmember Mondaire Jones had previously worked to successfully stop his deportation by the Trump administration before Biden was sworn in. But last Tuesday, Mondaire Jones tweeted, quote, "At 3 a.m., my staff woke up to an urgent call. Suddenly and in the dead of night, ICE was set to deport Rockland County's beloved Paul Pierre-Louis to Haiti, a country he has never been to," unquote. Monday's deportations to Haiti came after ICE had just suspended deportation flights to Haiti on Friday, following pressure from immigrant justice advocates, including our next guest, Guerline Joseph, co-founder and executive director of the Haitian Bridge Alliance, an immigrant support group. She's joining us from Orange County, California, not far from the border. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Guerline. Can you explain what just happened? How does a 2-month-old, number of babies, and overall more than 70 people get deported to Haiti after the moratorium of Biden is put into effect? Is ICE just gone rogue, or is this part of a Biden-Harris plan?
Good morning, Amy. Thank you for having us. Actually, we are all in disbelief of what we are witnessing right now in this United States of ours, to see how we continue to witness the same draconian, the same cruel and inhumane practice that President Trump left behind. Yesterday, as you mentioned, there were 2 deportation flights to Haiti. Unfortunately, the first one carrying about 72 people. Out of those 72 people included 22 children, and we saw as young as 2 months old. And we are looking at children 2 months, 10 years old. They are right in the middle of developmental stage where we should be providing protection for those people, but we see we are sending them into a burning house. Literally, there's a house burning, and we are sending pregnant women and children into those burning houses.
All right. So, so you got the ICE deportations are continuing under the Biden administration. It's always disproportionately impacting Black and brown people. Of course, with immigration, Latin American countries are severely impacted by this, as well as, the Caribbean countries as well. We have racist, xenophobic immigration policies that allow these injustices to be carried out. And this is the problem is the system, right? And to not recognize Donald Trump as simply a symptom, to not recognize Donald Trump as a symptom and not the cause allows for things like this to continue on, right? Because people, they got all outraged, and I'll admit to myself some of this, right? I didn't pay attention when Obama, the quote deporter in chief, was out there deporting, at levels beyond George Bush, and he even outpaced Donald Trump in many ways. He was the deporter chief, and I sort of turned a blind eye to it because, well, he's the first Black president, and everything he's doing must be good. He's a Democrat, and so we can't turn a blind eye to this stuff, and we can't sort of tune out or lose our outrage over these situations, right? You got 72 people being deported by ICE. The moratorium that Joe Biden put, it's not indefinite. It's just for 100 days anyways, right? So it's not even like they're not even taking it that seriously. Like, he came out with an 8-year immigration plan that we covered. It's not a serious plan. Joe Biden is not protecting immigrants. I could pull up a clip I should have pulled up the clip of Joe Biden talking about Mexican immigrants with using much of the same language before Donald Trump ever, existed in the political eye. You got Joe Biden using almost the same rhetoric of like, they're bringing crime, they're bringing drugs, like he pretty much was using the same rhetoric and saying, we need to build a bigger fence and a bigger wall. Joe Biden is on video saying that, right? So like, we shouldn't be surprised. And I talked about it during the campaign and why I supported Bernie Sanders. And it's because, you could see if you just base it off of his record and his history. Why look at how he treated how he spoke to that DACA recipient who called him out and he called out him in Obama's policies. And he said, well, if you don't like me, then go vote for Trump, right? That was his response. You know, what else are you going to do? What's your other choice, right? That's political capture. They know that they have us captured. They know that we can't go to the Republicans because the Republican Party is it's even worse than the Democratic Party. So they just use the threat of the Republican Party to say, well, we don't have to do anything because at least we're not making the situation worse. So we just don't have to do anything. We're just going to uphold and maintain the status quo when the status quo wasn't working for Black, brown, immigrants, marginalized people in this society, right? And so the deportations are continuing. ICE deportations are continuing. ICE detention centers. We still have concentration camps. The kids are still in cages. Where's the outrage? Where's the outrage for the kids still in cages? They're still locked up. They're still in cages. They're still being mistreated. None of that has changed. And Joe Biden has all the authority in the world to change that. We talked about it earlier on the show. I mean, Joe Biden has the ability with the wave of a pen to end federal, private contracts for federal detainees, right? Immigration detainees. And if he did, that impacts 70% of all ICE detainees are detained in private institutions. So these private prisons, their real moneymaker is not with the prisons, right? It's with the detention centers, the migrant detention centers, right? So that's where the focus should be. And this isn't something that directly affects me, but this is why you got to care about stuff that doesn't even affect you directly, right? Because it affects fellow human beings, right? And we should be outraged by that. No, it doesn't have to affect us directly for us to be outraged by it, and we should be outraged. And we shouldn't just be outraged when Donald Trump is the president. We have to be outraged when Joe Biden is the president. We should be even more outraged is the thing when Joe Biden is the president, because one, he claims that he is on our side on this, and that that he supports immigrant rights and that he's a fighter for immigrants. Well, then where is it? Where's the protection? How is ICE able to deport 72 people? A 2-month-old baby. What is the threat of a 2-month-old baby? What is the threat that they pose to any human being in this country? What is the threat that they pose to any of us? And this woman from the Haitian Bridge Alliance, Gerline Joseph, she goes on to talk about how they're using COVID as an excuse, and they're using this obscure provision to try to insinuate that these people, that they're doing it to protect people because of the pandemic, when these people were not testing positive for COVID. These people aren't even testing positive for COVID. And let me be real, even if they did, I would not want them deported. I would want them simply quarantined, all right? Just quarantine them for a few weeks, and that's fine. I don't want them deported, all right? Yeah, this is just depressing stuff that just gets me right in the gut, and it infuriates me. I just don't want to let it go undiscussed and fly under the radar when we're literally, the deportations are continuing. The kids are still in cages, and a whole bunch of liberals are off to sleep and are not, they just don't have the same outrage that they did when it was Donald Trump in power, right? Nothing has changed about the system, and we're not talking about systemic change in any way. Just changing out the person in charge just doesn't do enough. We need systemic change to protect immigrants, to protect children in this case, right? And it's not being done. All right. So we're at the 2.5 hour mark, and I'm not going to lie, I'm getting pretty hungry. I'm getting the energy is running lower here. So we might have to stop things soon. Let me just take a look at what stories I had left that I wanted to cover and see if anything has to be covered, that I'm not going to let slip by me. All right. What I'll do is damn, I got to talk about this one. Okay. More Biden, man. Biden shifting right, Biden not being moved left is just should have been the title of this video. All right. So student debt. All right. We talked about this on the show recently, in fact, and we talked about, how Biden has the ability at any given moment with the wave of a pen via executive order to wipe away any amount of student loan debt that he sees fit. Now, do I think that did I ever think for a second that he was actually going to do this or fight for this in any way? No, this is the same guy that told a bunch of students that he has no empathy for them and their student loan debt complaints, because when he was a kid and blah, 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 he's got no empathy, he said. So here we can see Biden, this news broke today essentially that Biden has rejected a proposal to forgive $50,000 in student loan debt. All right, so a bunch of Democratic senators and politicians, Congress people came out and were trying to apply some public pressure to Joe Biden to say to relieve some amount of student loan debt. They recommended 50,000. I say that doesn't go nearly far enough. And you just need to cancel all student loan debt. I just think it's weak with the means testing and all that kind of BS that comes in when you start to talk about 50,000. That's $50,000 max for people under a certain income level. No, let's not play those games. It should be a total cancellation of all student loan debt. And he has the ability to do that. He has the power. He has the ability to do it with nothing more than the stroke of a pen. But instead, he has chosen to reject that, to say that he does not support it. They said, so he was asked about this at the town hall. And when asked about it, when asked about his plans for canceling $50,000 of student loan debt at a CNN town hall event in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, President Joe Biden replied that he, quote, would not make that happen. He says, my point is, I understand the impact of debt and it can be debilitating, he clarified. I am prepared to write off the $10,000 of debt, but not 50, because I don't think I have the authority to do it. I'm going to cuss, people. I'm just warning you right now. He absolutely has the fucking authority to do it. He's fucking lying. This is a fucking lie, okay? He's fucking lying, all right? I'm sorry. I'm not holding him back on this one. You're fucking lying. You have the fucking ability to do it, all right? You have the fucking authority to do it, all right? We know it. I just showed a fucking story just a week ago that showed that Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer and all these fucking milquetoast politicians came out and said, you absolutely have the fucking authority to do it, and he can do it with nothing more than the wave of a pen via executive order, okay? So he has the fucking authority to do it, but he's a fucking liar, okay? He's a fucking liar. All right. Sorry, folks. I know I just... Huh? Oh, yes. Hungry. I'm hangry right now. All right. I'm hangry. All right. Listen, he has the ability to do this. This is an outright lie. This is a lie. And it's a spit in the face. $10,000. $10,000. I owe $80,000. You can take your $10,000 and you can kiss my black ass, Joe Biden. Okay. That's what you could do with your $10,000. Now, I'm not saying don't cancel the $10,000. There's people in worse situations than me that will be relieved by $10,000 in debt cancellation. Sure, do your little punk ass $10,000, but it's nothing. It's scraps, it's pennies, it's a pittance, okay? And it won't do a damn thing to change the systemic underlying problem, okay? We have $1.5 trillion of student loan debt. More student loan debt than all of the credit card debt in the entire country, okay? We have more student debt than we have credit card debt in the United States, okay? The idea that he doesn't have the authority to do so, it's spitting in your face, and you should be insulted by it. You should be insulted. Sorry, I'm going to take a second. I'm going to breathe for a second here. I'm going to breathe, okay? He goes on to say, I do think in this moment of economic pain and strain that we should be eliminating interest on the debts that are accumulating. He said, I'm prepared to write off $10,000, but not $50,000. Dude, first off, I've already accrued more than $10,000 worth of interest since I've been out of school. So saying we should stop accruing interest during the pandemic, just miss me with that, okay? I've already accrued more than 10,000 punk ass dollars of debt in just the interest, all right? Since I've left college, I've paid some of my student loans off. My student debt has gone up, okay, since I left college about 5 years ago. My student debt just keeps going up, all right? Whoosah. All right? I lost a few viewers with my profanity-laced rant there. So I'm sorry that I had to do that. I warned you, all right? I had to swear, all right? So I hope y'all turn the volume down if you're at work there, all right? I had to go off on that one. So listen, folks, all right, please don't fall for the banana and don't fall for no banana and no tailpipe. All right. Don't fall for these games and these gimmicks. All right. He can do better. He has the authority to do better. He simply will not, because he does not care. He does not care. All right. He has no empathy for students and for people in our generation. All right. He said he has no empathy for us. So don't be surprised. This is what people voted for when they voted for Joe Biden. This is what we got. All right. I voted for Howie Hawkins because Howie Hawkins believed in canceling student loan debt. All right. That was a policy proposed by the Green Party. All right. So I feel good about where my vote landed because I know I voted for the cancellation of student loan debt. I voted for a $15 minimum wage. Okay. I voted for those things. If you voted for Joe Biden, I'm sorry, but you did not vote for that. You did not vote for that. No vote shaming going on here. I'm not trying to vote shame you. I know you all felt a lot of pressure and there wasn't any realistic chance of a third party winning. I get it. I get it. I get it. Okay. I'm just speaking my truth. All right. All right. I might have to call it here, y'all, because I think I just like that might be all I got. That might be all I got, y'all. All right. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go because it's too long of a show. Editing this is gonna be a mother, as they say. I think that I got through the most of what I wanted to talk about. Quick hits that I'll do real quick. I'll just give a quick. I wanted to talk about. I really should talk about this. I wanted to cover the foreign policy issue here. The ICC, International Criminal Court, has. There was a landmark decision out of the International Criminal Courts that suggests that there's a possibility that Israel may be able to be brought up on charges of war crimes against the Palestinians. Unfortunately, I've watched a really great interview by Aaron Mate of a scholar on this issue, Norman Finkelstein, who is a great scholar on this topic and a Jewish scholar on this topic, and spoke out and explained why he doesn't believe, unfortunately, that this will actually allow Israel to be brought up on charges of war crimes for the human rights violations, their civil rights abuses of, essentially, being in occupied territory, the occupied territory in the West Bank and Gaza. They are the destruction of Palestinian lives, the apartheid state that they've essentially instituted. And so I want to cover that, and I want to cover that with some more vigor. So I will pick that story up and put that at the top of my list for our next show. Maybe we can bring in some of the clips from Norman Finkelstein on that, and cover that as well. Biden say they have serious concerns about this. Netanyahu, the right wing, essentially reactionary right wing prime minister of Israel, says it's anti-Semitic to criticize Israel, a right wing, fascist government that was siding with Donald Trump. It's anti-Semitic to criticize them in any way, shape, or form. How dare anyone suggest that they have to obey human rights law. I also wanted to talk about the People's Party and Ryan Knight leaving the People's Party Advisory Council. My thoughts on that. I have a new assessment of that, and I don't. I've rescinded my current support, my current donation, my monthly donation to the People's Party after reading more socialist perspectives on the People's Party and socialist critiques of the People's Party. I'm now on the fence about the People's Party, and for now I can't throw my support behind them at the moment because they have rejected the idea of considering themselves a socialist party, which means to me, if you're not a socialist party, you can only be a capitalist party. You can't have a capitalist and socialist party, because I'm sorry, but the capitalists hold all the power, disproportionately hold power, and they will win out. And every example of people's parties around the world, specifically the examples that Nick Brana, the leader of the People's Party himself, have given, like Syriza in Greece, Podemos in, I believe, Spain, those People's parties have failed and have ended up falling victim, becoming part of the ruling elites, implementing austerity measures against poor and marginalized people. And so I just have to reevaluate before I can recommend to folks to get behind this movement for a People's Party and get behind the People's Party. I need to reevaluate and really do some further analysis on that. And so I am for the moment, I'm not endorsing the People's Party at this moment. Of course, I want a third party. Of course, I want an alternative to the two capitalist parties, but I don't see how we do that by creating a third capitalist party. I don't see how that's just not a viable alternative to me. So I want to see a socialist party, a viable socialist alternative. That's what I believe in. That's what I'm fighting for. And I want to support any movement that gets us closer to it. Now, listen, I don't need it to be socialist, but I need to know that that it's going to be successful. And before I tell people to go throw their weight behind something, I need to actually believe that it's going to have some reasonable chance of success. I nominally support them, and I'm certainly not like against them. I wish them the best, and I hope that they are successful. I hope they prove me wrong. I desperately hope that they prove me wrong. But for now, I'm just sort of pulling back because I need to reevaluate. I've checked out. There's some great articles on World Socialist website and Socialist Organizer. They've had specific discussions with the People's Party, and I think that their perspective is very important to sort of bring into this, and they don't see much of a future or hope in the People's Party, unfortunately, for the socialist movement. So I just have to reevaluate where I throw my weight and my energy and my effort behind. All right. So, all right. With that, I think a few other quick things. Biden has given an $85 billion contract to Raytheon, even though his Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, who we've discussed on this show before, is on the board of Raytheon. This is a conflict of interest. This is absolutely corruption. This is just out in your face corruption that I want to make sure that people are aware of. This is, again, rank corruption, and we should not stand for this. You got a weapons contractor getting contracts from the U.S. government, while the person that is the most powerful person in the Biden administration, associated with the military, is going to be, is aboard and stands to profit from that contract. Like, we can't. And we talked about this, and they're just hiding behind Lloyd Austin's blackness. Essentially, Lloyd Austin is the first black Secretary of Defense. All they do is they slap, they put a black face on U.S. militarism, U.S. imperialism, and hope that everybody will stop paying attention. All the liberals will go to sleep. We'll say, "Oh, we got racial diversity, and we've diversified the oppressors. We've got a black face on U.S. imperialism, U.S. militarism. Isn't that great?" No, it's not. It's the system. The system is the problem, and you need system change. And putting a black face in a high place is not system change. All right, so. All right. As for thoughts on impeachment, I had some quick thoughts on impeachment. Pretty much it went exactly as I expected. There was 0% chance that Donald Trump was going to be convicted during impeachment. You would have had to have, 17 Republicans vote for Donald Trump's impeachment. I think you need 66 votes in order to convict the president, or the former president in this case. Wasn't going to happen. Never was going to happen. Sadly, 7 Republicans, 57 votes in favor of conviction is the most bipartisan impeachment trial in U.S. history. So this was as much as we've ever gotten from the other side to vote. All right. And it still wasn't even close. So everybody knew that it was a waste of time, waste of energy. They can do it for this fake symbolic, like, oh, we have to uphold democracy, but let's just be real about what this was. And this has no chance of going anywhere, and never did. And we just wasted a whole bunch of time and resources and distracted people from the real issues at hand and helping people get the help that they need right now while we're suffering through a pandemic and an economic depression unlike anything that we've seen since the 1930s. All right. That's it. I gotta go. Do we have comments that we need to get to? No, right. We got through everything. I'm sorry. Yeah, we just got to wrap up. Thank you for all the comments and all the activity, all the engagement in the comments was awesome. Really appreciate everyone for staying with us, sticking with us through this much longer than usual show here. Thank you. Please, if you haven't done so already, hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, share this out far and wide. Deeply appreciate you. And if you can afford to do so, and only if you can afford to do so, please support us on Coffee at coffee.com/radicaldemocracy. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/radicaldemocracy. Links are in the description box below, along with links to all the sources that we discussed today, as well as those stories that I wasn't able to get to. Check those out. support the show if you can afford to. Shout out to all of our Patreon and coffee supporters. Love y'all all. Appreciate the heck out of all of y'all. And we couldn't do this without you. We seriously could not do it without you. So thanks to all of y'all. And we'll see you again soon. All right. All right.